what we advertised.
He's keeping it
Yep.
till the 3rd.
He has, because all the emails were sent to the district, so he has them. I don't even have them.
Oh, okay.
So they were sent to the district. All the ones I got, nobody asked me to read aloud except for the one I just got when I walked in here. Purpose of this meeting is to conduct the business of the Gettysburg Area School District. Public comment is welcome, and issues will be referred to the appropriate board, committee, or administrator. Comments will be summarized in the official board minutes, which will be available by contacting the business office. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones or any other devices. Ms. Collins, all board members are present. Ms. Amy Beth Hodges is with us remotely and on the phone. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Notices and communications. Citizens participation. Due to governmental mandates, we had to move our meeting to 25, no more than 25 people. We advertised that in the local newspaper, and we gave the citizens the ability to not only send the board individual emails or group emails, but to send the district an email if they wanted their voice heard at tonight's meeting. Our communications director received those emails. We put the same caveat that we did at the last meeting. It'll be 3 minutes total for those. We're not going to shut them down. We'll read all of those. So Andrew, if you can watch, Mr. Moyer will keep it to 3 minutes. And if you can take over from there, please.
I will give everyone a heads up when there's 30 seconds left.
Thank you very much, Al, and good evening, everyone. All right, our first comment tonight comes from Michael Matthews. Dear School Board, I am writing to you as a constituent to implore you require students in the GASD to wear masks in the classroom when doing in-person learning this school year. This request is not of a political nature, but one based in scientific fact and physical conservancy. Requiring masks will not only protect the students, faculty, and staff. There is now an understanding that both pre-symptomatic and asymptomatic transmission are possible, even common. Studies have found that viral load peaks in the days before symptoms begin, and that speaking is enough to expel virus-carrying droplets. I would also like to know if you chose not to mandate masks in the classroom, I will seriously consider pulling my children out of GASD and enrolling them in cyber charter school. The cost to the district would be between $25,000 and $40,000 for my family. Is this something you have planned for in the district's budget? Thank you for listening. Michael Matthews. Next, we have Maria Fernandez. Good evening. My name is Maria Fernandez, and I am the mother of an incoming freshman in high school and 2 7th graders. I am just writing because I am overwhelmed with doubts and worries about the return to school. I had to witness this summer what I never expected to witness in my life, electing officials trying to risk people's lives to get their political agenda. I went to send my kids to school, and I have the right to do it. I know that the circumstances this academic year are going to be tough, but we are all ready to endure them. I cannot buy the idea of that freedom that some people are trying to impose on others. Your freedoms finishes when it clashes with my rights. You are violating my rights to send my children to a safe educational environment when you are not promoting the use of face masks. You have the right to do whatever you want with your children, but as long as they are going to come in contact with my children and others, then they have the right to a safe environment. We need the school to be open. We need equity for all those kids whose parents need to work and cannot have them learning online, and that is not going to happen if we put everybody at risk wearing masks. Maria Fernandez Perez. Next, we have Craig Reber. Members of the Gettysburg Public School Board. We, parents of a 6th and 10th grade student, would like to address the board with concern regarding the current GASD proposal to start the 2020-2021 school year in person. The most reckless part of the plan presented at the last board meeting is for K-6 graders to go to school every day, filling each classroom with 25 or more students and offering masks as an optional but not required protection. This puts our youngest student population and their teachers, families at most risk. With the collage of choices available, we appreciate that the district has sought to offer choices in a time where no choice will satisfy the majority of the community. Families not willing to send their children back to the physical buildings are offered an online option with the virtual academy. However, this academy is not equivalent education choice, as indicated by evidence of its performance over the past years. This academy, with its limited course offerings, is simply not an equitable alternative to education and opportunities provided by GASD teachers. Starting the year virtually for all students for term 1 would be the safest solution. Maryland counties around us have chosen this option, and they are planning to see what effect opening schools in person will have this fall on our community. If the school district is not willing to do that, we need a better hybrid learning plan than what is proposed so far. Masks need to be mandatory for all staff and students. Additionally, we cannot send K-6 students to school in full numbers every day. Their schedule needs to be similar to what is proposed for grades 7 to 12. Alternating students is at least a strategy that addresses the reality of a safe return to school policy formed out of sheer desire. The idea that students and staff will maintain CDC and PA state health guidelines at all times is unrealistic, but may prove to be successful, all the same with an alternating day plan. While we believe starting the school year virtually is the safest option, at least consider the alternative of every other day for all grade levels. Alternative day
30
schedules,
seconds, Andrew.
while not truly safe, is much safer than pushing the entire elementary and 6th grade population into confined spaces all at once. As teachers ourselves, we can attest that there is little chance of staying out of direct contact with other people in a school building throughout the day. Despite any plans and assurances, everyday instruction for the entire population is not safe. The current plan, based on desire alone, does nothing towards making the public, students, and staff safe. Next, we have Jeanette Prendergast. Hello. I would like to thank each and every volunteer, administrators, and staff who helped distribute meals to our students during the COVID-19 school closure. We would not have done it without them. Mary Kraft, Shelley Lappy, Ted Wells, Matt McFarland, Stephanie Can, Lisa McFadden, Jen Weigel, Lee Walton, Chris Lay, Jamie Buxton, Shalon Himes, Bill Bowling, Melanie Stremmel, Casey Thurston, Nancy Herb, Noah Stahalik, Christy Kaywood, Sue Clapsaddle, Casey Thurston, Belinda Wallen, Jason Perrin, and Jeremy Lusk. Sorry if I missed anyone. We had so many people step up to volunteer. Thanks again. Next, we have Becky Ott. What is the reason for the every other day plan? How can you adequately sanitize a school in that amount of time? How can you sanitize a school bus between the high school and elementary school runs? This is absolutely unacceptable. Do 2 consecutive days with Wednesdays off for cleaning, then send the second group on Thursday and Friday. What has the district done since March? There should have been some preparing for this year in regards to who my child's teacher is, what school supplies we need for in-person and virtual school, preparing workbooks and packaging the Chromebook in the event that there were any remote position. Any portion remote. I'm sorry about that. You have caused undue hardship to my family by expecting me to dish out tons of money at once for school shopping, clothes, and supplies, and not to mention setting up childcare and expecting the provider to keep my child engaged in learning outside of the classroom. Next, we have Al and Stacy O'Soren. Thank you for allowing us to comment on your proposal. We are both alumni of Gettysburg Area High School, and we have a student currently enrolled in the district. The United States Secretary of Education recently said that children should go back to school in person, with classes being held 5 days per week amid the China coronavirus pandemic. The CDC wrote, implementation should be guided by what is feasible, practical, acceptable, and tailored to the needs of each community. Our president has said that some of the CDC guidelines are tough and impractical. We are paralyzing our children by the administrative proposal under vote by the Board of Gettysburg Area School District. We are moving against the recommendations of the United States Secretary of Education and the President of the United States of America. This proposal is completely unacceptable and must be abolished. This proposal is completely insane. Next, we have Chuck Burkell. Dear Gettysburg Area School District Board Directors, President Ken Hassinger, Vice President Al Moyer, Carrie Soliday, Treasurer Kathleen Pratt, Michael Dickerson, Amy Beth Hodges, Tim and Lynn, Tim Sigmund, Sylvan Hershey, and GASD Superintendent Jason Perrin. My wife and I are writing to you concerning the proposed Gettysburg Area School District plan and proposal in light of the COVID-19 pandemic to reopen Gettysburg schools commencing August 26, 2020, as explained within the Gettysburg Times on Saturday, August 1st, 2020. While there is not a lot of detail provided within the article regarding the plan, what is most concerning within the Times article is that the focus group consisting of teachers, parents, students, and administrators allegedly decided that it would, quote, be too difficult for students to wear masks all day, end quote, according to Superintendent Perrin. That plan element of face coverings, or the absence of such, ignores all of the scientific data as established by the Centers for Disease Control and our own Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Health guidelines and recommendations. This data, and I am sure you have heard and read this before, cites that the use of face coverings is a significant element, not just for COVID-19 prevention and mitigation in general, but specifically for the prevention of community spread with schools and other indoor settings. It is a critical component of any COVID-19 educational setting plan, and it appears that the GASD, for whatever reason, is not going to adhere to the guidance and protocol. Recent news concerning a summer camp in the state of Georgia this week vividly outlines the impact of community spread within a camp for students that ignored social distancing and the use of face coverings. One news report cited the following yesterday, July 31st. More than 250 children and teens tested positive for COVID-19 after attending a sleepaway camp in Georgia, according to a new report. The young staff and campers took some measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19, such as keeping children in groups based on their cabins, social distancing outside of cabins, and frequent cleanings. But critically, masks were not required for the campers, only for staff, according to the report from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Who knows how many elderly and other adults will be impacted with infection from these students and children. Further, as you know, GASD students are very much a part of the Gettysburg and surrounding Cumberland Township, Strabane Township, Cashtown communities. They have the potential to facilitate community spread of the virus to parents, elderly, and other with risk factors while unknowingly being asymptomatic. That is why we practice. This is why the practice of using face coverings.
Andrew.
Next, we have Michael Flatterty. GASD School Board members, as a father of 3 GASD students, I appreciate all that you do for the education, health, and safety of area students. There hopefully will never be another time as challenging as now, and I know that you have many facts and opinions to consider. I urge you to lean heavily on what we know about COVID-19 and less on opinions that perpetuate mistruths. As a former student of public health, it pains me to see what political strife has contributed to our poor handling of this pandemic nationally. We can and must do better locally for our children, of course, but even more so for our teachers and staff who are at most risk. The Centers for Disease Control, Adams County, and Pennsylvania Departments of Health and the Department of Education have pledged to work with each school to create and manage safe school opening plans. And my concern is more general. Please enforce your COVID-19 safety rules strictly. Mitigation, such as social distancing, masks, and hygiene are critical to preventing school outbreaks and to save lives. Adams County is improving, but has had generally poor compliance with mitigation, particularly mask wearing and distancing. Some students may model their parents' refusals. Stores give masks refusers the option of shopping for them, and schools can provide online learning. For everyone's safety, the rights of the non-compliant must be balanced with responsibility to the entire school, even if that means their in-person learning ceases. I hope that mitigation expectations will be clear to all students and the stubbornly unsafe are quickly given other learning options. Thank you, Michael Flatterty, Gettysburg, PA. Next, we have Christina Sigel. Dear members of the board, we would like to submit this public comment regarding the updated reopening plan for the Gettysburg Area School District, which was released this past Friday. We were very disappointed and concerned when we saw the updated plan, noting that it only called for 2 in-person days for students. I was surprised to see that the plan was changed from the previous plan of having kindergartners return to school 5 days a week in person. Our daughter is 5 years old, and we are looking forward to having her return to school 5 days a week. The quarantine has been hard on her. She is an only child, and there are no kids in our neighborhood. She has had not much social interaction with anyone for the past 4 months due to the quarantine and because her daycare just recently opened up again for a few days a week. I feel that her not having a set schedule every day is going to be a continued challenge for her, as she is already struggling with social situations because of the shutdown. I do not have a family in this country, and my husband's family lives more than 2 hours away. Further, there is no daycare option in our area, so having our daughter at school puts us in a difficult financial situation, and I will not be able to work full-time if our daughter cannot go to school full-time. I am a freelance translator and had to change my schedule to part-time back when the quarantine started. It has been a financial hardship for us and will continue to be so if kindergarten is only in person 2 days a week. Also, our daughter will have a hard time attending online classes. I know that she does much better in person when she can interact with teachers and friends. Our daughter does not have a problem wearing a mask. She understands why it is okay wearing it for a prolonged time, so I believe this would be a good option for kids, and we are definitely willing to have her wear a mask all day. Transportation is also not an issue for us. We understand that these are difficult times, and we appreciate that you, the board, and the school administration are doing your job of keeping our children safe. However, please consider our comments, as I am sure there are other parents who are also affected in a similar way. Thank you in advance for your consideration, and thank you for doing the work that you do. We know that it is not easy, particularly now, making a decision that fits everyone's needs. Sincerely, Tina and Kenneth Sigel. Next, we have Amy Capone. After reading the proposal for 2 in-person days and 1 virtual, my husband and I, who are both full-time employed essential personnel, are exploring child care options for our elementary child. One option is to attend a camp in Gettysburg that many children from GASD schools and the surrounding school districts go to. I couldn't help but think how my family and other families who have no choice but to find alternate care for their kids on days off will be exposed to many more kids if they were to go full-time and stay in their classrooms with their set classmates. It seems to defeat the whole purpose of limiting exposure. I know these are unprecedented times and there is no easy answer, but I want to share this point. Thank you, Amy Capone. Next, we have John Zimmerman. Good evening. My name is John Zimmerman. My son will be entertaining first grade at Lincoln Elementary. We were very pleased with his kindergarten experience at Lincoln. Looking ahead for K-6, my wife and I are concerned with the current reopening of school proposal. Our concern with this proposal is that the number of face-to-face instructional days has been greatly decreased, and so has the number of obligatory school days in general. Could the district consider adding 1 additional day of face-to-face instruction every 2 weeks? Example, Group A of students attend face-to-face Monday, Wednesday, Friday the first week, and Monday, Wednesday the second, while completing distance learning curriculum on Friday of the second week. Group B attends Tuesday, Thursday the first week and completes distance learning Friday, and then attends face-to-face Tuesday, Thursday, Friday the following week. I am confident the Gettysburg staff could do well for their students in what would be an even more demanding format if they had ample planning time and necessary technology resources. In summary, we appreciate the district aiming for safety by way of social distancing. However, we have high hopes that the new schedule options could be considered that would increase the face-to-face instructional days while also providing students with guided learning opportunities on off days through a unified learning management system. Sincerely, Mr. John Zimmerman. Next, Siri Phelps. Hello. Let me begin by saying how pleased I am with the revisions to the GASD reopening plan. I greatly appreciate the efforts of administration, teachers, community members, and school board members in working together to improve the plan with the safety of our children in mind. I was very pleased to see that, if approved, K-6 would also use a hybrid approach in order to achieve smaller classes, and social distancing in classrooms for elementary students. I am very relieved that mask wearing will be required and encouraged. I'm also excited to see that there will be an online option for students to be taught by GASD teachers. I would love to feel safe sending my children back to school in person this fall, and with this plan, I feel much better about the options. I asked the board to please approve the plan this evening. Thank you, Siri Phelps. Next, we have Maria Kretz. Good morning. First off, I want to say this is a great opening plan. I have 3 questions for the new opening plan. Was there thought given to doing a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday schedule instead of the Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday schedule? It seems that if you kept the kids and the school on 2 days back to back, there will be less of a need to deep clean each night and less rotation in the schools. Was the option of online learning provided by what is the option of online learning provided by GASD staff? Will this be live streamlining? Other local schools are requiring those with a mask exemption to have a 504 plan in place, Littlestown and Fairfield, or a signed doctor's note. Will Gettysburg require this as well? Maria L. Kretz. Next, we have Tina Hall. You have MLB and NFL players opting out of a full season. We have House lawmakers contacting the virus. We have had new cases in Adams County almost daily. Regardless of how many precautions you take, it is still a lot of students in the buildings and on buses at once. Is there going to be someone standing at the bathrooms cleaning them as students exit? They touch door handles, etc., on a constant basis. I would also say it is a lot on teachers to teach in school and virtually at the same time. It is twice the work to prepare lessons plans for in-school learning, then have to prepare online learning as well. I would suggest not going back the first semester and revisit it, or go all in or all out and see what happens. You cannot expect parents to be able to find childcare on a part-time basis. Either go back to school or stay out. It isn't that hard. Next, we have Aaron Nikirk. What are the hard stats for Adams County? Number of cases, number of deaths, age of those who passed, and death rate per capita percentage. Were these hard facts a part of the decision? From what I understand, return to school 5 days was the overwhelming consensus from families from the survey the school district sent out. Will you allow the voice of Adams County residents guide this decision? AKA representative government, the government operates in a manner that represents its constituency. Please explain in detail why this decision for 2 days versus 5 days being made, and for what purpose. What benefits are to be derived from this type of schooling? The curve has been flattened and hospitals are prepared and equipped to handle sick patients. People ages 25 and under are the least affected demographic. Based on what hard evidence-based data facts was this decision made for this local school district? Please, please, please allow the high school students to return to school 5 days a week. If there are students and teachers at risk, make special modification classrooms, or allow teachers to teach online to the few at-risk students at home. The minority can be tended to without adversely affecting the entire high school population regular school routine. Impact on children and families. Children are resilient and adaptable, yes, but students constantly achieve more when a structured and routine environment. Relying on families to provide 3 days of instruction for their children is a tremendous burden. Will teachers' salaries be cut to provide relief and support to parents for doing the job of professional teachers? Will parents receive a tax credit for homeschooling their children 3 days a week? Impact on teachers and administrators. Is it reasonable to expect them to be successful in an unstructured environment? How much more work has this created for people in an already taxing profession? If the teachers are concerned for their health and safety, teachers, have plexiglass installed around their desk. Can teachers, wear additional personal protective equipment? Can they wash their hands before and after each class? We know these measures prevent the spread and contraction of disease. Next, we have Joni Snyder. When students are not in school, will they be on Zoom with the teacher while they are teaching, or will it be work to do on their own as it was in the spring? Will they have gym, art, or library? Lastly, I hope that it will be worked out that siblings in different schools will go to school on the same days. Thank you for your time. Next, we have Marilyn Dolly. Gettysburg School Board. A few weeks ago on a social media post, I mentioned that school boards and administrators should have been preparing for online school since March 15 and got pushback along the lines of, not possible. Teachers were too busy trying to learn online teaching, rewriting lesson plans, learning Zoom and YouTube and Slack, etc., and some other excuses about the ensuing months not being usable for planning, training, implementing, etc. For the record, my husband teaches at GHS, so I am fully aware of the daily frustrations of online teaching, as well as lack of planning and difficulties in execution. True leaders would and could have done this. The reason true leaders are in their positions is because they have the ability to see more, envision more, and inspire more than the rest of us. Just because some local school boards are not composed of enough true leaders doesn't mean it can't be done or that there are not true leaders out there somewhere. There was and is no real chance of widespread vaccination prior to August 2020. There was and is no real option for widespread protection other than distancing and masking 100% by all and everywhere. There was and is no possibility that children will adequately follow masking and social distancing in school. Leaders knew this, regardless of the daily fluctuations in data and guidelines. Some leaders saw, envisioned, and worked more and came up with the safest and wisest decisions and policies. Some of our local school board members posted anti-masking, anti-science, and anti-mandate rhetoric online and supported local politicians who smiled in press photos with neo-Nazis on hallowed ground on July 4. Yes, the right thing can be done. Just because our local leadership can't and won't do it doesn't mean it's impossible. This is an example and the post about which I wrote the above comments. Quote, Norristown School District Superintendent Christopher T. Dormer on their plan to open virtually until January 8, 2021. Bravo, sir. I will not be the superintendent who puts anyone, not one child, not one staff member, in harm's way. I cannot, in good conscience, allow any reopening model that increases
30 seconds.
The risk of infection, illness, or someone dying. We could not continue to plan based on what's feasible or the greatest extent possible, as guidance would allow us. This also meant we would need to reduce our academic options. I realized that by trying to plan for 3 modes of school and trying to be a jack of all trades, that we would be the master of none. While I have tried for months to offer our families the widest selection of options possible. Next, we have Dustin Rhodes. If students are attending school in person 2 days per week, what will occur on the 2 days they are home? I'm assuming virtual learning, but I'm hearing rumors that these are days off and only virtual learning will occur on Fridays. I hope this is simply a rumor. Please let me know, Dustin. Next, we have Denise Weldon Civvy. I have 3 questions related to the latest reopening plan. 1, what really happens when a kid/teacher tests positive? Referring to vague state guidelines, as this latest plan does, is not a real answer. I want to know what the school will actually do. Will parents be informed that a child or adult in their child's class is COVID positive? Or will this important safety information be hidden from us based on a misinterpretation of HIPAA? And I don't mean the name of the person, just information that is class specific, since that obviously poses a much higher risk to our kids. Will the classes in question be quarantined? Number 2, At what tipping point will the district acknowledge the danger and move all online again? 5 COVID positives, 10, 100? The first COVID death from school exposure? Do you have an actual plan? 3, does the district still plan to allow anti-maskers to endanger other students and staff by allowing them to pretend to have a medical condition without providing documentation? If so, will those unmasked students be segregated away from students wearing masks to prevent them from spreading COVID to students doing the right thing to protect others? And yes, please read into the public record that it is an option. I am a property-owning taxpayer in the Gettysburg Borough and have 3 kids currently enrolled in the Gettysburg Area School District in grades 6, 9, and 10. And finally tonight we have Paul Kellett. Shame on you, shame on this board. As a parent of 2 GASD children, I instruct my children to follow the rules of the school, not just the rules with which they agree. The teachers and principals besiege us to do just that. As a board, you are role models for both our children and the employees of GASD. The state of Pennsylvania has a Sunshine Act, and that Sunshine Act has not been removed by the pandemic. At your last meeting, you violated the Sunshine Act by limiting public comment to 30 minutes total. Nowhere does it allow for such a limitation. This evening's meeting, requiring public comment to be submitted 1 hour prior, is again a violation of the Act. I am well aware that Act 15 of 2020 provides for remote meetings, but the limitations on public comment are not in compliance with Act 15. Similarly, at the last meeting, several members of the board did not wear masks in clear defiance of the law. Again, when you pick and choose which laws you wish to follow, you set a very bad example for our children. In conclusion, I object to tonight's meeting as a violation of the Sunshine Act that cannot be remedied by any action this evening. Paul Kellett.
Is that it then, Andrew?
That was, Mr. President, that was a total of 19 people, and I believe everyone who requested to be heard was heard tonight.
Andrew, just as a point of record, the emails that came in that you read tonight, did every one of them ask to be read at the public meeting, or were those emails sent to the district?
Those were all sent to our pcomment@gasd-pa.org.
Thank you. There was an overlay, because some of those were actually sent to board members, and I'd already responded over the last day and 2 months.
Yeah, if they sent them into this address, they were to be read out loud as we had notated in the advertisement.
Thanks, Ian. Moving forward, routine approvals, where we won't deviate from what we normally do. 5.1 is the regular board minutes from July 13th, 2020. 5.2 is the Student Career and Technical Program Consulting Agreement. 5.3 is termination. 5.4, a settlement appeal. And 5.5 is the Human Resources recommendations. Do I have a motion on the routine approvals, please?
So moved.
Second.
Question? Roll call. Amy Beth?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Sylvan?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Timon?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
And I vote yes. As a side note that I forgot to mention in air, the board held executive session prior to tonight's meeting related to a personnel matter. Items for board action brings us to the hot topic, 6.1, the district reopening plan. I turn it over to Dr. Perrin.
Thank you. And for those live streaming at home, you can find the presentation right underneath the live stream link if you want to follow at home with the audio that's coming through live stream. All right, thanks. We're going to run through the slides that were posted publicly. I would ask that board members just hold all questions until we get completely through the slides. And when I get through the first portion of the slides, Dr. Lay and Ann Baum are going to speak a little bit more specifically about how remote learning would work as well as part of the presentation. So if you could just hold on to questions till we get through those two items, it'll help just the flow of the presentation. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. All right, since July 13th, really, the goal has not changed for the work that we've been involved in, and that is to reopen the schools and resume instruction safely and equitably. These considerations also remained: making sure that we open responsibly in order to remain open. We wanted to have a single plan that could be utilized in both green and yellow phases. And we wanted to make sure that any of our strategies and procedures were reasonable and sustainable as long as we needed to use them, not knowing what the future would hold. So some of this is similar to the first presentation, obviously along with daily disinfecting and sanitizing, especially the high-touch areas and the high-traffic areas on a daily basis, and weekly enhanced cleaning and sanitization, all district buildings. As you mentioned at the last meeting, we'd run the HVAC in order to increase ventilation. We're still considering 2 students per seat on buses with masks, and the transportation of complete families. So just to be sure that people understand what that means. So if a family would have students in elementary school, middle school, and high school, students in all 3 of those levels would go to school the same days and be bused the same days. And as always, parents can certainly transport their children to school if they choose to. So the main difference between this proposal and the one that was shared as a draft on July 13th is, currently we're recommending a K-12 hybrid approach, and students would be in school either Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, based on their schedule. And that's something that we would provide to families, let them know which one of those cohorts they would be in prior to making any decisions regarding choice for the current school year. And still trying to offer daily face-to-face instruction for students with special needs or complex needs. In terms of different districts have been sharing different check-in dates to either update or reassess their plans. So our goal or target is to look at what the situation is, both legally, regionally, across the state as we approach the end of the first quarter of the year, as opposed to waiting for the semester just to see if there are reasons or data in place at that point to make any shifts to our plan. On the 13th, we mentioned that there's a 100% online learning option for families through the Gettysburg Area Virtual Academy. The provider for that is the Virtual Learning Network, or VLN. Between that time and now, we've also been working with the Gettysburg teachers to look at an option provided by Gettysburg staff. And what that will look like will depend very specifically on the number of students that would sign up for that, what grade levels they would be in, which buildings, because we would then utilize our staff and make plans based on real numbers as parents choose options. But you know, they're committed to helping us offer that to families. You know, the benefit of doing this through the Gettysburg teachers would be certainly they have, you know, relationships with families and with students in the school. They would be delivering our curriculum, and obviously would be part of the Gettysburg program. If someone chooses Gettysburg Virtual Academy, they're also still considered a Gettysburg student while they're enrolled with VLN. Still looking at limiting the number of individuals in classrooms and learning spaces, and kind of minimizing the interactions between groups of students, trying to limit contacts on a daily basis. You know, one of the things that we looked at previously was the district calendar. With this recommendation, we would look to have the first student day be August 26th. That would provide a little bit of extra professional development time for folks that are going to be teaching both in person and on a remote platform. Not just because some of the platforms are changing, but there are differences between teaching face-to-face and a combination of face-to-face and remote. So we want to make sure that folks are as equipped as they can be to be successful once students begin. So we're still looking at the home temperature screens. Want to make sure that no one's driven to school or placed on a school bus if they're showing symptoms on any given day. And as the last slide points out, reminders in time for just normal hygiene as we're moving through whichever schedule that the student is within the facility on a given day. We talked about addressing symptomatic individuals, and I think that one of the questions that we hear come up at times is, when am I going to email the school if a student has a positive test, or when are we going to close a school if there are 4 positive tests? So I think that everybody needs to understand that the guidance for all of that is provided by Pennsylvania Department of Education and PA Department of Health. So all those decisions that people have asked about are decisions that we would not make in isolation. We would make upon recommendation and consultation with those entities. And certainly, as it was mentioned previously, making as many accommodations that we can to reasonably accommodate students and staff that have high risk factors. The current recommendation, following Department of Health, Department of Education guidelines to support our educational model, to the greatest degree possible, and this recommendation requires students to wear face coverings whenever they cannot social distance 6 feet. So when they're within 6 feet and not eating, or those other types of exceptions, and also exceptions as required under the law. and certainly students would be able to provide those, but we would also have those available. And a lot of the 6 feet goes into, the change in the plan from the 13th to the current draft. So we talked about being able to separate students within the classroom. The only way for us to get 6 feet of distance really is to reduce the number of students in the buildings. So you'll notice at all 3 levels now you'll see the 6 feet in terms of the distance between students. Middle school. Again, looking at the minimum of 6. That slide doesn't mean it's always 6. It means it's a minimum of 6. So it might be 7 or 8, even in some situations. And high school also, 6 feet. And again, we utilized, those are some of the resource documents. There are resource documents that talk about different distancing levels, but as we got feedback from the various groups, people felt more comfortable with the 6 feet. So we moved the recommendation to a K-12 hybrid. So Andrew, I'm going to let Dr. Lay and Ann run right into the remote learning slides.
Good evening. Today, this afternoon specifically, we worked on drafting a document that gives more clarity to what happens with teaching and learning, teachers and students, in an A-B blended alternative day schedule for K-12 students. So when we look at students in school, either Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, we look at what we would typically expect in a classroom pre-COVID. Teachers and classmates engaged in activities, certainly with a focus on building relationships, in particular upon the return from our quarantine days. We're going to establish routines at that time for what remote learning expectations would be. Practice those routines so that students are more able to work independently and successfully when they're in their remote setting on the alternating days. There would be direct instruction with teachers. Teachers would work individually with students in small groups. Students would have practice with the content and skills with teacher guidance. And of course, there would also still be time for students to work independently. At times that would be in offline settings, and at times we would be using online resources in school, as we've done previously. So then what does that look on the alternating days? On those particular days, and this will vary, so we are looking at students engaging in offline and online resources and activities, but more what we refer to in an asynchronous manner. It wouldn't be directly engaging with the teacher in a live stream setting. At least this is our plan as we look at it today. But again, we'll continue with those activities on building relationships, and now the students get to practice those routines that we have previously taught face-to-face, now in the remote setting. There still will be direct instruction provided from their teacher. In this case now it's via previously recorded videos that the teacher has created in advance of that day, with direction from what would happen on the day they're in school to the day they're out of school. Students would work independently, but also we have platforms in our digital resources that will allow them to work collaboratively with peers on those days. Students would practice with content and skills that were previously taught by the teacher. At times, there would also be activities that students would preview learning so that when they come back to school the next day, they're ready to dive into direct instruction with the teacher. And then there's time for students who work independently, again, offline and online. And then Friday, what does that look like? Everybody coming together, teachers and the students engaged in activities, again, around building relationships, class meetings and such, and they would rehearse those routines that were taught for remote learning. There will be live direct instruction from teachers. Now there's an opportunity that the teacher will record that for students who can't attend to that synchronously for whatever reason, so they would be able to access that information at a later time. Teachers would be working with individual groups and of students in small groups. She might start a direct lesson, and as students are evidencing they're ready to work independently, some students might stay connected and continue to work with the teacher directly. She could set up a time to work with just small groups on a particular skill, or even individual students. Students will practice them with the content and skills with teacher guidance as needed. And there's also then time for students to work independently, offline and online as well. So we're looking at A and B, and then the Friday remote being more direct instruction and access directly from the teacher. And then their off days are directed independently and guided with advanced preparation and notice from the teacher. So this is our plan for K-12. Of course, you know, the dynamics of that and how that would look would vary by the day and the particular teacher and the grade levels, but that is our plan as we have it. And I did want to make note too that the practice with content and skills previously taught, we're looking at a way to build in time in a teacher day for him or her to have access with students. There'd be a set time that they could connect if they have questions, but also through email and the different platforms of our learning management systems to seek help.
Thanks, and certainly as there are a number of folks here, just want to make sure I clarify that all the folks that you see sitting out there have been thinking and working on this since we shut down in March. You know, we started thinking about fall then, but certainly the information that we've had to utilize has shifted and changed from then till now as well. So we've had to work and kind of parallel some of the things that we have to work around. So I want to make sure that folks understood that at least the folks in this room, and then a lot of folks that aren't in this room, this is what we've lived, like most people, since since March 12th. So I appreciate the folks that are here this evening. It's a good team of folks, and trying to do what makes sense, for our community. Trying to reopen our schools, but try to reopen them responsibly. But the group as a whole are able to work together to answer any of the questions that you all might have tonight. So feel free to ask questions.
This is the time for questions? I'll start things off, if that's okay. Dr. Lay, I appreciate more of the specifics here. That's very helpful. If I am a Monday, Wednesday, A student at elementary, middle, or high school, on the days that I am remote and there's asynchronous activities going on, so that means I can go on whenever it's most convenient for me and my parents, and if I need some help and so on. Will that be, would the asynchronous content or the part of the curriculum, will that be, I'm assuming that is some new material that's being taught there as well, that we're not repeating what we got face-to-face when we were in class on Monday and Wednesday?
Correct. It's an extension of, there might be independent practice of previously taught skills, and then there's new learning that would be pre-recorded, so it's not live teacher, but it's their teacher providing that. And then there's also the opportunity that we would present some new information as a preview of the learning, so that when we come back to school the following day, teachers and students can engage in activities they previewed the day before. So it's a variety of things, but absolutely it's an extension and new learning. It's a day of school.
Right. With the asynchronous activities during the remote days on Tuesdays and Thursday, for me, if I'm an A student, how much time for the average student would you say to successfully accomplish the material there? And I realize there's a wide variance and every student is different.
Right, and there's a lot of research out there, and what we planned for students in the spring in our emergency remote learning was based on what the research says, which is like an appropriate amount of time for students to watch a video, an appropriate time for students to work independently. And the worst thing we can do is dump a lot of assignments on students, and then they struggle to work on it independently. So we really look at it as like the amount of time that we'd expect for students to be engaged would be the direct instruction, and then that independent practice can come. So we're looking at, in an elementary day, about 30 minutes per content area. Upper grades, we increase with that. So, we're looking at a somewhat equivalent instructional time that they would have if they were face-to-face with the teacher. But again, it's with the ability to work at a time that's convenient, because we understand some parents will be returning to work, some children will be in less ideal learning environments during the day. We have reached out to some community partners to see if we can get support to provide places where students know they could go to learn if learning at home is not conducive. We've reached out to some of our church community partners. We have community centers located throughout the community. We've reached out to them in hypothetical situations because we need an approved plan before we can say this is what we need. So as soon as we have an approved plan, we can go into action. We've talked about partnering with the Red Cross to offer the Red Cross babysitting class in a remote environment for our students in middle school and high school. So we can get Red Cross certified students who can be in their environment and supervise students who are working independently while they're doing their work, and parents can work. So we're trying to move forward with all that once we have an approved plan.
Two more, and then I will
Okay.
stop dominating and turn it over to the others. On Friday, then, I am the a Monday, Wednesday person. On Friday, I like what I'm seeing up there, but I just want to make sure that what I'm seeing is also, I'm not assuming things. Teachers and classmates engaged in activities, building relationships, live direct instruction. So that means there will be some synchronous activities happening simultaneously with the rest of my class, and there's interaction between possibly the kids, student to student, student to instructor.
Correct. And then if students can't attend, there would be, again, recorded videos for students to access at a later time. And a lot of the ways they can interact are other remote tools that teachers have learned, and we have many days we're planning for professional learning once we have an approved calendar to teach students and teachers these activities, so that even if the student can't be there in that live situation, they can still participate and engage.
Yeah, so if participation is a challenge for that family that day, it's all recorded, so then over the weekend or evening or some
Correct.
other time, I can get caught up, and maybe I'm not going to be interacting directly with everybody that day, but I'll at least be exposed to what did occur.
We'll have access to it,
And then-
absolutely.
Finally, I know in Dr. Perrin's presentation, we mentioned daily face-to-face instruction for students with complex needs. Defining what complex needs are, I'm assuming that might be our students with IEPs, 504 plans, and other needs such as that. Is there, or maybe some students that have some language barriers?
Right.
Am I on target with that, or is it more a bigger definition than that?
It's inclusive of that. We've already talked with the English language teachers about there's 5 there's levels of students with English language needs. So we've talked about we have to include our beginners. We want to make sure we're level 2. We have students who are level 3 that, with day-to-day interaction, they may be able to exit the program. So we're looking at those students. We also would consider other students with unique needs, which is why we didn't want it to just be isolated to a population of particular students. We have parents who are communicating to us they have a desire to work with their students in a full online, and they're asking to access our teachers for gifted and talented services. And again, once we have a plan communicated and parents can respond to a survey and let us know, that we have to know how many students we're going to be servicing in these different models so that we can plan for how that looks. And I will just say parents want to know, so as soon as we can get that information back, a plan approved, communicate with families, get that information back, we can go to work.
Thank you. My final question, Dr. Parent, just real quickly for you. The big change between the draft plan and our plan tonight, I believe the biggest issue is elementary students being part of the remote instruction and being part of the AB schedule and so on. Could you help clarify what was it that impacted you to move that recommendation from them going all 5 days? My perception is, based upon what I heard tonight, was to be able to do the 6 feet of social distancing. And I know we had committees that looked and vetted a lot of issues. Was that the major factor, or were there other factors that went into that?
Because we looked at, we took about 2 weeks of different kinds of feedback after the July 13th presentation, and then our team then had to collapse all of that, all of the focus group feedback, all of the survey feedback, and then kind of look for those common themes, and then we were going to adjust the plan. So I would certainly defer to folks that were in the focus groups to, to add on here. But one of the things that came back across multiple teams and across multiple groups of people was comfort level with 3 feet versus 6 feet.
Correct.
And that was really kind of the only way to get 6 feet then was to move to a hybrid model. Unless folks were comfortable with that. If for folks some other conversations, feel free to just kind of stand up. I want this to be a conversation. Y'all have been kind of living this for weeks now.
One thing I want to speak to about the 6 feet, that was unanimous in focus groups, that we need to have 6 feet apart. And so I know I repeatedly was asking the elementary principals, go back in the rooms, consider all your spaces, move as many classrooms as you'd have to, try all configurations, measuring from the student to student, not desk to desk, middle of the student desk to the middle of the next student desk. And they're based on current enrollment, there's no way we could do 6 feet, particularly in James Geddes and Franklin Township. Lincoln, we used to be a high school, so that building is a very unique situation. It required a lot of reconfiguring, but we could do it. But those other 2 buildings, there's no way we could do that. And unanimously, that's what we're being expected to follow CDC guidelines and then PDE's guidelines, and they both say 6 feet. So we have a lot of feedback survey from teachers as well, who told us we need to work on keeping them safe and students safe. We can't open without teachers. We need teachers in our schools to be teaching, and we need them to feel safe and be safe. And, you heard the comments tonight. No matter what we do, you're going to have parents who support one way or the other, but we looked at the guidelines and what we feel like we have to do, and we're presenting a plan to you tonight that we developed that we believe best keeps our students and teachers safe. And that's with a lot of feedback from a lot of stakeholder groups. So this is our plan. Not without a lot of thought and consideration, but this is the plan that we're proposing.
Dr. Lay, I'd like to follow up as far as teachers go. I've got a question about your plan. So if I look at this correctly, teachers are in the classroom, the physical classroom, 4 days a week with the group A students and the group B students, correct? But then I think, well, then every teacher will also have to prep for 2 days a week for the A and B students to be in their remote days, plus the Friday remote day. So my question is, how are we providing the resource of time for our teachers to prep for specifically the 2 remote days for A and B?
So part of it is the planning days that we're preparing before school starts. And then we're planning to be able to use some of the time Friday for additional collaborative planning time for students. Because there's time in a student day on Friday where they'd be at their special activity. So classroom teachers would be able to collaborate on those particular days. So we're building that in as much as we can throughout the days with additional resources. And once we have a lot of routines in our schedules. You know, there's lessons that teachers would be able to tape, record, and video and place out there online, because it's some of the things we did with our primary phonics program, our phonemic awareness program. So some of it would be easier for teachers to prepare on an ongoing basis. But some of it's going to be very unique to what the student assessment data is telling them. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge. But we felt that this was the plan that would best keep our students and teachers safe. So we have planned days throughout the school year. We have planned days in advance. And we look for some time for Fridays as well.
Thank you.
Yes. I wasn't sure if the mic kind of bumped in, so I wasn't sure. Teachers are in the building 5 days a week.
Yes, thanks. I do understand. that.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Dr. Lay, I think you have a question down here.
Yeah, so I apologize to my colleagues. I have a whole sheet full of questions. So I want to start by sharing a little data real quick, if you guys will humor me. So there's been 483 reported cases, this was as a few days ago, in Adams County, with 14 deaths. 11 of those deaths have occurred out of the same facility. And if you can break it down by municipality or zip code, there has been 67 confirmed cases in Gettysburg, 17325. 31 of those positives were out of the same facility as well. There have been 0 children that have died of COVID-19 in the state of Pennsylvania, and only 79 child deaths, 0 to age 18, across the United States. There's been over 525 0 to 18 children suicides since schools closed in March. I wonder why the administration hasn't proposed a plan to this board with 5 days a week instruction with masks, following all the CDC recommendations and guidelines. 50% of the families of the families in this school district are on free and reduced lunch. And having children out of a household go to school 2 days a week is going to be devastating on those families. They're going to try and figure out what to do for childcare and how to pay their mortgage and their car payments and put food on the table. I have some questions. I want to know on the focus groups that we've had, how many of the parents from the free and reduced lunch demographic were involved in these surveys. I would like to know how the parents were chosen to be part of these focus groups.
Are you pausing for a response, sir, to that question?
No, I'm just kind of laying some stuff out here. There's been a lot of studies that have been done. One has been released by the New England Journal of Medicine on schools that have already opened across the world since the beginning of July. And they have found that there's been less than one new case of community spread transmission among children per 100,000 residents. So we keep talking about data and we keep talking about science and keeping teachers and families and students safe. I just want to know how children going to school 2 days a week and forcing their parents to let their children be watched by the grandparents that we're concerned about is going to be best for the children in this community. As a school board and as educators and administrators, our number one focus is to focus on the education of children. The CDC recommends that children go back to school. Pediatricians recommend that children go back to school. So another question I have is how many pediatricians were invited and part of the surveys that have been conducted?
I just want to speak to the survey. The survey was sent to all families. So,
Yeah, the survey, the survey also indicates that over 86% of the people that responded to the first survey said that the online education that we were given did not work for them, and that they wanted to go back to school as normal, whatever that was. In this last survey, there was no questions in the survey asking about if we had to go to a hybrid model, how are they going to make accommodations for childcare? How are they going to make accommodations for work? You're going to find situations where people are going to have to choose between a paycheck or their kids going to school for 2 days, and then instead of doing the online learning like we proposed, they're going to be at a daycare center. It's just, this is not a feasible or workable model in my opinion. And I would like to know why a proposal hasn't been made to this board for 5 days a week in-person instruction with masks following the state and federal guidelines.
Our initial proposal that was in July took a look at K-6 in every day. We weren't able to social distance 6 feet there, so the shift that you're seeing in this proposal allows everybody to be 6 feet. The feedback we've gotten and some of the things that we've heard through comment, through feedback, was that there was varying support for masks all day, whether it be amongst the community or other stakeholder groups, we'll say. So really it's trying to bring something that we thought would be acceptable and safe and something that we would be able to move forward.
Mr. Dickerson, am I hearing you correctly that you are suggesting K through 12 should attend school 5 days a week, fully masked?
I'm wondering why a proposal wasn't proposed to this board for more than one option. Children obviously need to be in school, and if masks work and we're following all the recommendations from the experts and the science, then why wasn't that proposal made to this board? I don't think from what I'm hearing from a lot of people that have contacted me and a lot of families that I know, people are begging me to vote no on this proposal tonight because they have no ability to quit their job or stay home to make sure that their K through 5 children they need to be in school. There are people in this community that we are going to significantly impact financially in ways that we can't understand by doing this. And from what I'm gathering, those people's voices weren't heard. When the surveys went out, they weren't asked, if school had to be hybrid for K through 12, do you have the ability to stay home and make sure your child can access what they need to do and do the online school? We're making a big decision here tonight. And something else that's frustrating to me as a board member is possibly we are going to make a vote on one of the most important decisions the school board has ever made. And we received this plan and proposal on Friday afternoon and are expected to come in here on Monday and vote for it.
So something that's been going on is that this is evolving. There's information that comes out and since March 13th, and the information and the guidance from the same institution that our educators hold a certificate from that they must follow. The information has been provided as more data is gathered. And there is clearly local control to local authority to modify plans. But there is a real concern because kids have not been together in the setting of a classroom.
Okay.
I taught kindergarten. I went home with kids' body fluids on my clothes. It happens. It's just part of teaching. You are close to students, and there is a real concern from staff that what if they become symptomatic? What are they taking to their families? What if they have an illness? So when you talk about safety, it's not just the students, it's a bigger circle when you hear teachers say, I may not see my grandchild now. Or you hear a teacher say, I have a condition that would prevent me from exposure. It could be deadly to me. Safety applies to students and staff. And this is a social experiment, putting students and teachers and the staff back together in buildings. This is the first opportunity. We see what's happening with summer camps. And it may not be that children are becoming very sick, but then there are others that do. And there are long-term effects that are not yet known. I truly appreciate the amount of time and energy every administrator sitting in this room has put into a plan. It is not a lighthearted venture. Months of trying to figure out the right fit to make sure everyone stays safe and respect the input that's coming in from the community at large and trying to meet their needs. I know that there are other resources. Dr. Lee, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. When you look at reopening guidance, like from CCSO or other, that would be the Chief Council of State School Officers, that talk about reopening. I'm going to turn that part to you. What have you been reading and thinking about as you present a plan like that from teams of educators who are well-respected and bear the same weight of responsibility you do on this scale?
So the last slide of our presentation names some, but certainly with the expertise in the room with looking at online and blended learning, which we investigated and put in place in an emergency setting in the spring, and we allowed teachers hours in the spring before the end of the school year to give feedback on what they felt worked, what didn't work, what they would recommend. And we align that with what the research practices are telling us. We're building courses to teach teachers now. The other big change in our plan is our teachers want to teach students fully remote. That's a big undertaking that we also just learned at the end of last week, that that's something they want to do, and we want to support them, and we want to keep our students intact. So we have to plan for that, and we're looking at what goes into designing effective online learning for our students, K-12 now. And once we have a number of students, then we can work with our staff. We have a lot of work to do to say, this is the number of students in each of the options that we're affording our families. And for some, it will be coming into school every day. There are some students that we know will need to, and we will work with those families to honor that. But then we're going to have some students now fully remote, relying on our teachers, and our principals are needing to know which teachers are we assigning to that task. Is it somebody by building? Is it somebody by grade level? So that we can meet those students' needs as well. And the plan says we want to come back at the end of the first marking period and reevaluate what we're doing at the latest. Certainly there could be opportunities before then when we look at things. Guidelines, a plan out from PDE sets a structure for administrators to now take a district-approved plan and put in place a school-approved plan for themselves. What can we do as a school? And guidance on, we're going to meet every 2 weeks, monitor our progress, what's working, what's not working. Yes, we have taken feedback from lots of groups and tried to build a plan we feel meets the needs of our students, not without concern for our youngest kids. Absolutely, not without concern for those kids. And we're going to figure out a plan to best meet their needs and support families as well with that. But we're all in this situation across the United States, across the world, and collaboratively we're working with our district team, our county team to support each other, and resources from the state that, as Carrie said, change weekly, if not more than weekly at this point. And we keep using that information. There are CDC guidelines, yes, that saying kids need to come to school, but they also have to be 6 feet apart. And they have to wear masks. So
It's
it's
not
more
6
than just
feet.
one thing.
It does not say that they need to wear a mask and be 6 feet apart.
And what we've been telling teachers when they ask if they can meet with students in small groups, we say, your guidelines are 6 feet apart or a mask. And there is concern, I will be honest, that teachers are concerned there's going to have students who won't wear masks, and that we'll be in a position where we have to accept that. And we're not going to place them in areas of the room isolated and separated from the class, but I've said to the teachers, if you can't keep them 6 feet apart, then they have to wear a mask. If they won't wear a mask, then you have to keep them 6 feet apart. So that's the decisions that are going to have to guide their practice and their routines.
And it's unfortunate if a family decides that they don't want their child to wear a mask, that they are really putting the teacher or a bus driver in between the state guidance and the family, and the teacher or the bus driver is the one who has to negotiate that.
And our administrators.
Unfortunate. That's an added stressor beyond capturing precious instructional time, because that's a lot of what we read in the documents about reopening schools, is we have to capture more instructional time than we ever have before. Actually look at where we can compact instruction
Yes.
and focus the attention on what students need. Closed, unfinished learning they talk about, because some students were not able to connect or chose not to participate in the spring. So not only are they trying to close the gaps for unfinished learning, but move ahead to gain the current grade level
Correct.
instruction as well, and not lag behind, even in this 9-week, I'm gonna call it trial phase of reopening, and to find
Correct.
out what happens.
And we're looking at, looking at our curriculum alignment all summer. What are the essential skills and knowledge? And we have to screen kids and figure out where they are in their learning from when they left. We have benchmark data from when they left us, and now we will compare that. I will say in a smaller classroom setting with less students, teachers can more individualize the learning and target their needs. And we've always looked at smaller class sizes. That's not what drove our plan, but we look at that opportunity to really enhance the learning when students are with us face to face.
I think there's a lot to unpack in just a few things that were said here, and I'd like to address a couple of them. We all want our kids back in school. We can all agree with that.
Absolutely.
COVID-19 has shattered what school looks like, and it's our responsibility to rise above, rise above the things that frustrate us, rise above what our political party tells us we should believe. And this is our time, folks, to come together as a team and develop a plan to get our kids back in school, get them in school safely. Take our personal issues out of this altogether, including our frustrations. And I will say this, 79 deaths, so I was just told, in the US, kids 0 to 18. Where have kids been since March? They've been home. They haven't been in the public forum. We don't really know what this will look like when the kids are back in the public forum. We don't know. And I will not cling to that stat. And I will tell you this. I also would say to anyone in this space, anyone outside of this space, if you want to throw a stat at me for the number of kids who will contract and die of COVID-19, here's what I'll do. I will give you a list of every single student in our school district. And I'll say, you pick the percentage of kids who are going to get COVID-19. You pick the names of the kids who will die of COVID-19. And you give their parents a call, you give their loved ones a call, and tell them you pick them. So folks, let's not get caught up on stats. Let's come together and let's develop a plan that makes sense to get our kids back in school. Keep teachers safe, keep staff safe as well. And I will also say this. I hear you say that there will be students who do not show up wearing masks that should have a mask on. And I will say there is a real difference between civil disobedience, which I'm a huge fan of, and any of you who've had my kids in your classes probably know they are too, and anarchy. And I would encourage anyone who's going to tell their child, don't wear a mask when you go to school, before you tell your child that, please look up the definition of anarchy. That is the very definition of anarchy. Disregard for authority. So can we please come together and can we approve a plan that works?
Ms. Pratt, I didn't mean to interrupt you, and I hope I didn't. I wanted to say this prior, and I want to ask the board, and I'm going to challenge the board. We're going to follow the proper rules. If you have a question, you can address it to me, and I'll recognize you. And this is an opportunity that we have tonight, and I want to remind everybody to ask the questions so that we can make an informed decision. And the questions really come down to a plan that was here before, a plan that Mr. Mike just mentioned, and a question that he asked, and what's on the table today. And I sure would like to use our time right now to hear from the administrators and the problems and the stuff that's going to be facing on any of these plans. What are the differences between them? What works, what doesn't work? So,
Mr. President, can I ask a few questions? I've been sitting here quietly.
thank you, Sylvan.
listening.
Yes.
All right, I need to get a few things straightened out here. On July 13th, we were sending K-6 kids back to school 5 days a week. What is it exactly that happened between the 16th and tonight that changed that? And can I ask you, could you just lower your mask? One thing I discovered tonight and last time we were here, I don't know how kids are going to hear teachers with masks on. It's really difficult. I'm just wondering if maybe our district ought to look into face shields.
I just want to say, if I speak now into the mic and somebody else does, that was my concern. So
I'm not
I assume we had to be
upset with you wearing a mask
no.
or anybody, but I
if
purposely put mine down here so I can be heard because
Right.
the speakers are sending things out there, I guess, and
Fair.
not in here. So
Right. We changed that because we couldn't do 6 feet apart in our K-6 classes. And we didn't feel that I was led to believe that we would not have support of students wearing masks all day.
All right, so the reason it was changed then was because we have classrooms in this district that will not accommodate keeping the number of students who would be assigned to that class 6 feet apart.
Yes, sir.
And if they're less than 6 feet apart, they have to wear a face covering. And if we require face coverings, we're putting ourselves in a position where teachers are going to have to spend time convincing students to wear them or parents to have their kids wear them.
Or administrators attempting to coach students and/or.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to the A-B schedule.
Yes.
Was there any thought given to the A-B schedule so that, let's just take a traditional week. Monday is A, Tuesday is B, Wednesday is A, Thursday is B, Friday is A. That means that in a 4-week period, we can gain 25% of instruction time.
Right. So we did have that in our original plan for 7 through 12. But when we took upon the challenge of teaching Gettysburg students fully remote with Gettysburg teachers and taking K-12 teachers teaching students in a remote setting every other day, we looked at a day where everybody's doing it on Friday, and then time for teachers to collaborate and plan, preparing for that for the following week. So the other consideration is that, we've looked at plans and what our experts are telling us, and the pediatrician on our committee who's saying, there's a great concern that we're going to have another shutdown, or that there's going to be students out of school for 14 days or staff out for 14 days based on some of the symptoms, and we really need to have a full remote experience be more successful. And everything we've presented today does not look like spring. We took what worked, we took what didn't work, but we really are looking at teachers and students connecting with their select teachers.
But you're already going to have kids in that traditional week. You'll have, let's say, A's in that particular example that I gave you are going to still have 2 days where they have remote learning.
Correct.
And the kids that are B's will have 3 days, right?
Well, the Friday is what we're proposing is it's.
Now, I'm trying to give you an example of where there are no Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
A's would have 2 days where they have that.
Right,
what
I understand
you
what
have
you're
up
saying.
there.
We just look at Friday this way as all students can gain it, because we're looking at it being live, direct teaching for all students. And it's 1 day of the week, all students in that class are together, not broken up by AB.
Okay.
So we're not looking at Friday being all.
I guess I got scarred by last spring, and I don't mean to badmouth teachers. Obviously, like any time, you have stronger classroom teachers in one room.
And that's our
other,
challenge,
know.
sir. That's the professional learning and the work of these administrators, and we'd rather be spending our time working on enhancing that than chasing
Right.
kids who are
Right.
not choosing to wear
All right,
face covers.
so the way you're setting it up then is that if my neighbor is taking my kids to school, will they be on this, can they be on the same schedule that my kids are? So we help out working parents.
I know we're transporting by families, and initially we were looking at alphabetically, like A through L,
Right.
and then somehow that diverted slightly. But can families work with their building administrator in the transportation? I mean, really, we need to know if they're riding a bus, because we have to honor that to per seat and how many runs we have to do. If they're transporting and they want to work something out with their schools, we're not saying that can't happen.
Right.
I can't say we're definitely going to be able to honor all that, because we want to get half and half as much as, what the breakdown now is pretty split evenly.
Yeah. Because I know the fear that a lot of parents have isn't necessarily or as much the classroom as it is sitting on a bus.
Correct.
And so they would like to either A, have the opportunity to take kids themselves, if they can, if their schedules
Correct.
permit that, or they arrange in the neighborhood,
Absolutely.
you know, so
And
I
work
think,
on flexible schedules, hopefully, with their employers, absolutely.
yeah.
But again, until we have a plan that's approved, we can't communicate to families what that's going to look like, and then we won't know.
All right, talk to me a little bit about the Gettysburg Virtual Learning Academy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a 100% you sign up for it, you got it?
For a semester at minimum, yes.
And do you have any idea how much that will cost the district for every student that signs up for that?
For,
About 3,500 per student.
$3,500 per student, so the parent would bear no cost. We would pay for that. So every student who is signing up for that, the district will pay $3,500.
but in the previous plan, we didn't offer Gettysburg teachers, so.
Right.
Through what we've, working with our association, that's what brought this information and idea to our plan, is they wanted to offer that opportunity, and feedback from parents has suggested that they'd be interested. So we may not have as many choosing a virtual learning network versus Gettysburg, but we're prepared to send out a follow-up survey upon approval to find out who that includes.
Okay.
Okay?
I think that's my question. I guess my only thought is, do we have time, since it's now August 3rd and we're looking at opening now August 26th, do we have time to make any kind of major changes, what may appear to us as major changes to the people who put it together, to the committees, to change much of that, or are we really pretty much being forced, and I don't mean that necessarily in a negative way, the calendar is forcing us to say, yeah, if we don't go with this one, we're looking at kids not starting until after Labor Day.
So, I mean, I can answer. I mean, this recommendation came certainly out of a process. So if we would be asked to change it, we would know what part of the process is driving that.
Okay, so if everybody said, oh man, Hershey's idea of an A-B schedule eliminates Fridays and has kids only do, you know, we would have time to do that because that's part of the process?
What I'm suggesting, though, is what the proposal is, that would only benefit half the kids, because only half the kids would be accessing live teaching.
And I was only using that as
I
an
know you are,
example.
but I just want to make sure it's
Yeah,
understood, because
there are other things that I'm hearing tonight, either through letters, and I think, if you ask my wife, she'll tell you that I read every one of those emails that we got, some of them twice. And I know what people were thinking because of that, and from just chatting with them.
And
know,
then we receive, positive feedback because it addresses the 6 feet. So, yes, sir. I mean, we've all spent a lot of time reading the feedback on all the surveys and what parents are wanting to do. So we
Okay.
just have to make a decision and then deal with what we have.
I thank you for hanging in there with
Oh,
me.
you're welcome.
First of all, I'd like to say I appreciate all the hard work you guys have put into this. I know it hasn't been easy. I have a few questions, though. One was I'm trying to figure out if we have live instruction on Fridays, why aren't all the classes done live so the kids at home that aren't at class that day could at least watch and maybe not participate? Some kids are more or visual learners than they are written learners. So if you're at least watching the teacher present the material and have access to it online, it would be better for them to comprehend that information.
So what we're proposing, though, is teachers are teaching it through a Zoom discussions on Friday. That wouldn't be the setting Tuesdays, or the off days. The teacher's going to be working directly in front of students.
Yeah, and I get that, but that's what I'm saying. Why isn't that being streamed live? So you're with the rest of your class essentially at home, watching your teacher teach the class. If you could do it on Friday, you could do it every other class. The technology's there.
Well, actually, we don't have all the technology there to do that currently.
I'm not saying you. I'm saying that
Okay,
technology's
you're
out
saying,
there
okay.
for us to do that very easily.
So, if I can, as an educator, it's really difficult to teach via Zoom and in front of those who are live. You pay attention to one or the other. It's very, very difficult. And we always co-facilitate, I do this statewide, and we co-facilitate for that very reason. Sometimes we even have 3 adults, so someone can man the chat. It's very difficult.
And I'm not saying for certain classes, like a unique specialized class at the high school, that might not be something we consider, sir. That absolutely could be something that comes about because of the unique settings in instructional delivery.
My,
Mr. Sigmund, that will happen at times. I mean, I would imagine. I just can't say that's going to happen often. It'll happen where it makes sense to happen. It could be a 10-minute explanation of a calculus problem, and that might be all you get live time, from a certain teacher on a student's.
well, my thing wasn't so much that the kids from home are interacting. So I'm not saying that they
No,
would have
right.
interaction with the teacher. My point is you're sitting home listening to the teacher teach the subject. So you're grasping the concept. If you're working on the work and she's explaining what you're having trouble with, you don't need to ask the question. If you do have a question, you can email her later or talk to her on that private chat, but at least you're in the class listening to her teach the class.
And we're not
That's
opposed.
what I'm talking about
Right.
being live, not an interaction with that student at that particular moment.
Right, and those options will be considered. It's just, not, as a general rule, we're not doing the live streaming. But there certainly would be opportunities where we would consider that for students. And it might be more of what we do than what we start with.
Okay. And then one of my other questions, is there do we know if there are any, or if we have an amount of total of students who have unenrolled in Gettysburg Area School District?
Unenrolled?
Unenrolled.
Well, I know we have students who have submitted their paperwork to do homeschooling, but they're registered as homeschool, but actually have withdrawn from the district.
Well, unenrolled would be if you went to a cyber school
and I know
outside of
folks have.
Gettysburg Cyber School, you would not be enrolled in Gettysburg.
We have
anymore.
requests for records.
Yeah, so there's a lag time sometimes in people signing up for that and then us being notified.
Right.
Our notification usually comes when that entity requests the student's records from
Yes.
us.
So I don't have a number, but I know we have requests for records from outside.
Approximately how many?
I don't know.
I would like an answer to that question.
My other thing is, and Carrie touched on it a touch, and Mike touched on it a touch. I know everybody is worried about COVID, as we all are. But my thoughts in the past couple of days have been going to the long-term effects, and that being the mental and social disorders that are going to come from not having school. If you have been around in the past 10 years, you know our children of today are, I don't want to say socially awkward, but not as social as we were growing up, because everything is done off their phone. When you come to school, especially elementary kids, that's where you learn how to interact with people and children and settle your disputes and learn to play with others and share and have disagreements. If they're not in school, that can't happen. The mental issues, as Mike touched on, of suicides that happen, it's not going to get any better not having people in school on a regular basis. It's just
that's,
not.
Yeah, I mean, we're proposing a hybrid approach versus
I
a
understand
remote,
that,
yeah,
but-
full online, just because of those reasons you're mentioning, though. We absolutely know kids need to be in schools.
But these kids need to be in school 5 days a week.
Okay.
It just need to be.
Jump onto the mic to give a little bit of just the perspective I have for my own building, and I can't speak for the middle school, I can't speak for every elementary building. You know, I'll just back up to the spring. The spring was emergency mode. I understand where you're coming from, and even our own teachers were frustrated because they wanted to go pedal to the metal. But as everybody was just trying to figure out what on earth was going on in the world, we just cautioned them to just slow down. We can pick up the speed when everybody's ready. I think we're ready to do that. Kids need school. So as Dr. Perrin explained at the beginning, you know, this model is a model we all believe in. Otherwise, we wouldn't bring it to you. Like, this is the model. Like, kids need school now. I don't want to wait a quarter and do full remote. Kids need guidance counselors. Kids, I think, need me, some of them maybe. They need their teachers, and they need to be put in a position where we can keep them there, hopefully through the whole year. I think there's a lot of doubt everywhere that come November, we're going to be able to do that. I'm an optimist, but I want to put a plan in place that at least gives it a chance. Today, I got to venture into a cafeteria with about 100 kids eating. They were at band camp. I've had parents say, "Why on earth are you doing band?" Because some kids need band. I've had respond to emails as recently as Friday, Sunday, explaining why we're doing things like band. I had a neighbor to the high school call me. He has grandchildren in the district. He asked me, "Why on earth are you doing band?" And I explained why we were doing band, because kids need that experience. So today in the cafeteria, I saw really what I'll see every day at lunchtime, now that we built 4 lunches into our schedule, proposed schedule at the high school, which would bring about 100 kids in to eat, facing one direction, 2 seats in between every kid. They're close enough to have a conversation. It doesn't look scary in terms of rigidity, but it's safe and it's sustainable. When they were done eating, I saw 100 kids with masks on. Didn't hear anybody complaining. They broke out into an activity that would facilitate part of band camp, whatever they were about to work on with their band instructor, after they were done eating. But the arrangement looked safe and sustainable, and those kids were happy to be in school. So we'll have that 4 times a day, pretty much looking like that as soon as we can get kids back to school. Normally, we put 300 plus kids in there, pack them into the cafeteria, and to picture them eating in such a place, well, I pictured it, I've seen it, you know, many, many years, every day during the school year. Knowing the science, I can't think of anything more dangerous. We can do it the way we've planned to do it, and then hopefully we can continue to do it so kids can do band, so kids can come in and have meaningful engagement with their teachers live,
And some of my classes, I just went through the numbers. I was sitting here before we started the meeting. Some of my classes have 18 kids in. That's 18 young adults. Looking at the class, most likely 17 and 18-year-olds. That's 18 big bodies in a classroom. We'll space them out. I think we can get 6 feet with 18, but that's one of my larger numbers. The other ones, as the slide said, are closer, average 12. We've measured classrooms. We can get 6 feet. We will, to answer all the people who say masks should be on all the time. Like, I just took mine off so I can speak to you. I feel like they're relatively safe. I don't think anybody else is going to touch the microphone I'm speaking onto. There's times where you just really need to take the mask off. I try to keep mine on in meetings as often as I can, even when we're spaced out, just because the science says things are a little safer when the mask is on. Is it foolproof? It is not. That's why space and masks worked hand in hand together. That's why we tried to spread every kid in the district out by 6 feet. I will encourage kids at the high school to keep their masks on even when they're 6 feet apart, as much as they can stand to do so and still feel like they're learning in a good mental state, which is a challenge that we're all concerned about. So I think considering all the variables, all the science, people that believe we should be doing this versus people that believe we should be doing this versus people that think we should be doing this, this is the plan we believe in. I'd be willing to entertain any high school specific questions at this point.
I have a question.
Sure.
Mr. Lusk. So approximately how many high school and middle school students do you have participating in summer sports right now?
I defer to Mrs. Thurston. She checks them in every day, so she should know much better than I.
We check in about 2 to 250 every day. We have about 500 that we've seen over the course of the summer.
Okay, so 250 every day, 500 over the summer. Once they're screened, complete their health questionnaires, and they practice everything that you guys did in that hard work of the document coming up with the reopen plan. How many of those students have tested positive for COVID-19 and have had to not participate in the activities?
None that I'm aware of.
And that's over a month. I would also like to say that being a parent of a 12 and a 14-year-old who are currently involved in recreational sports, since we moved into yellow phase, there have been approximately 700 kids in the Gettysburg area doing Little League baseball, travel soccer, and travel basketball, all using common sense and following the guidelines as set forth. And to my knowledge, everyone has remained safe. So if we can do that as a community and still only have 67 positive cases in Gettysburg, then why can we not have a plan where children are in school 5 days a week following all of the recommendations, all of the science, and wearing masks and not be safe as well?
My kids played baseball. We tried to take personal precautions as much as possible and coach our kids about how they should interact or maybe not interact so much with others. And I get what you're saying. I also am aware of folks who have had concerns about their own children locally here. And I think we're all very fortunate to be in a place where numbers are relatively low. I, for one, would like to keep them low. And this is a virus that spreads exponentially. I'd hate to think that some of the rises in numbers from Maryland will drift our way. I hope not. I think we need to do our part in keeping the numbers at a manageable point so we can keep bringing kids in to do the things that Mrs. Thurston has been trying to facilitate, and others, not just Mrs. Thurston, this summer. But numbers will rise. And I know people that have been in the area. As recently as today, I had a conversation about someone who's been very, very frustrated because they have concerns about symptoms, had a test a while back. They should have results by now, but they don't. I know of an adult close to home in terms of the school community that had a test over a week ago, has been waiting for results, no results. So, you go back to work. Our testing system is extremely flawed. It's delayed, and the ramifications of that, I hate to think about too much. I'm just hoping that it improves. It'll give us all information that we really, really need to operate safely. I get what you're saying, and I think, thankfully, that's the case. I think we'd just like to keep it that way.
Do you know if we, or what the plan is for anybody that is sick or does test positive for COVID? What is the school's plan to handle that, student or teacher?
We would get notified by the Department of Health, and then they would make recommendations in terms of to what degree notification occurs. They would, we work with them, we cooperate with them with regards to contact tracing, and then they would make any recommendations with regards to school closures or district closures.
Casey, I have a question for you as well, related to athletics. And I realize the target just keeps moving almost on a daily, weekly basis, unfortunately. What, from your perception, the latest information that you're getting from our conference leaders and from the PIAA, does it look optimistic that we'll be able to have a fall season? The latest rumor I heard is that we may have a delayed season where maybe there's no scrimmages or non-conference competitions and so on. The other thing that I heard that I thought was somewhat encouraging is that the PIAA is looking at differentiating the sports. Obviously, tennis, cross country is very different than volleyball or football or soccer and whatnot, and that they had some specific guidelines for each sport. But what's the latest that you're hearing in that regard?
Well, we have an 8 a.m. meeting tomorrow, so with York Adams with all the principals in it, so I'm sure we'll get a little bit more information in that regard. I believe that each conference is going to make up their own decision. This afternoon, Mid-Penn delayed right next door to us, so my gut tells me that's what's going to happen, but who knows? I think that there's a pretty mixed bag of ADs and principals and schools in York Adams and what they want to do, for sure. I was just going to add, Mr. Dickinson, to your question that when we check in every athlete, we are temperature checking at the door with a mask on, and we are also asking them all the valid questions, which we're not doing coming into the building. So those kids are going to hit the school on a regular day without having any of that process in place. And most of our sports are outside. We tend to only have about 40 kids inside, separated in 25-member pods in the building, based on whether it's the gym with walls shut or whether it's in the weight room. So outside on a football field or outside at soccer or field hockey is much different than being in a classroom as well.
I understand that.
Go ahead, Timon.
Tim has a question.
Not the right time of the year, but I saw all the scheduling and things. What happens if I'm scheduled to be there in school on day A, and it turns out to be a snow day? And this is not the time of year to necessarily think about snow, but how are you going to cover, in other words, how do I make up a snow day?
We're currently in the process of applying for approval to do flexible instructional days. So we wouldn't have to cancel school for snow. It'd just become a remote learning day.
Okay, I know it's not the right time of the year, but.
Yeah, it's definitely something we thought about for sure.
Dr. Lay, I have just a couple follow-up questions. It'll be really brief. Moving from the spring now to the fall, we as a district, were we able now to accommodate the internet needs and et cetera, so that our kids, I know we had delivered, 90 some different hotspots out. So are we comfortable that we have the technology out there, that the people have it in their hands to be able to do that remote
We did
learning?
not collect what we sent out so that families would have access to that in the fall. So anything that was sent out is still there. But then in addition, the surveys that we've sent out this summer are asking those same questions. With the CARES funds, we have purchased additional devices so that we have a one-to-one K-12 and additional hotspot. So we will deliver those to homes if we need to ensure every student has, and every staff member has access to Wi-Fi and has a device.
And the other follow-up, you were asked earlier, and I apologize, I don't remember which board member, and I'll preface it. I already know the answer to the test question on what changed between the two plans. And truthfully, as I sit here, to be honest, I believe that there was not a support for mask, period. And that was probably me representing what my understanding was. Is there any other thing outside of that that changed that plan from what was presented to us on July 13th to what we got today?
Yeah, feedback on the survey, and the main thing really was we couldn't create a 6 feet apart classroom setting for K-6. And we have many survey responses that said families do not support students wearing masks to school at all, let alone all day.
Okay,
in
so
the classroom.
yeah, I wasn't aware of that because I would have the concern also, just echoing a little bit of what Mike had to say. Mine's more geared towards those families that have to make a decision how they're going to support themselves because their K through 5 kids don't have child care, and those are real life decisions. And I think, to be honest with you, with me, that's the driving force when I look at anything right now, just trying to take into account the community.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we could find a happy medium here at some point. I'm hopeful, but I appreciate that. I needed to know if that was what the driving force on that change was.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a combination of those two variables, the
Right.
6 feet and the mask.
Because the original plan had the high school under Mr. Luss and actually Ms. Herb to 7 and 8. Nothing's changed there, nothing at all.
No.
K through 6 changed.
And full remote Fridays.
Full remote on Friday.
Full remote Fridays.
And teachers in the classroom doing instructions 5 days a week.
Absolutely.
So we're not doing it from our pool, or we're not doing it from our, and I'm being
I know,
facetious,
I
but.
know. Yes, they're in the classroom all day. And again, we will make accommodations with families that are needed. So, we just have to send things out, a plan, and get feedback so we know what option families are choosing. Because even before this proposal, those families that submitted their request for records had already chosen to go outside of Gettysburg Area School District. That didn't come about because of revisions to our plan. Many families were electing to do that for different reasons anyway. We have a lot of families who've indicated they intend to go fully remote, and up till this past plan, it was through our GABA, but now we're offering our teachers remote. So we really have to get information back now that we're offering more options to families now based on our survey feedback and feedback from focus groups. So once we know that, we might be able to accommodate some families of young learners who don't have resources otherwise to provide for their child safely in the home. But we can't know that till we know how many kids are coming every day to school. So certainly the last person in this room that's going to say no to a child and put them in an unsafe situation would be me.
And I agree, and our emails that we've gotten and I've answered for this board are less than enthusiastic, and some of them were downright accusatorially nasty. There's not a board member sitting here today that takes this lightly and wants any harm or damage to anybody. We're looking for the right solution in an ever-changing world. Having said that, if we went with a 5-day program, and that's what this board would decide, is that a doable program, Mr. Lusk, Dr. Lay, Ms. Herb?
All
And
students in K.
I'm assuming that Matt was already gearing up for that up until recently.
You mean the previous plan, the K-6?
No, what I'm saying is I'm assuming K-6, the previous plan, the July 13th plan, I think I've already heard here tonight, with some modifications, that can be an adopted plan because you were looking at that leading up to July 13th and gave us a recommendation to that. But if the board would reverse and the board as a majority would say 5 days a week, I'm interested in hearing the impact from not only from the teacher side, but from the administration side on why that is a good or a bad plan, or why you wouldn't consider that. Does that make sense?
Can you clarify what you mean by 5 days a week?
Back full-time within the mandates of the CDC, to the Pennsylvania Department of Health with mask usage, back as a normal.
Oh, like pre-COVID?
I'm actually following up on what Mike, because I wanted just to hear, because you're on the ground working here, what the issues are with bringing those students back, just like we did last fall, only following the guidelines.
Well, we couldn't follow the guidelines.
Since you can't distance,
There'd be,
So our school would function at 5 days a week. The only difference is the mask? I mean,
well, teachers would not feel safe.
that's what I'm looking for.
Even with a mask, they would not feel
Why
safe
wouldn't they
even
feel
with
safe
the mask.
if
With all students returning to school and 100% compliance of masks?
As
by
much
all
as
students?
as much as practical, minus the people that are exempt medically
And that's,
and/or 504 IEP. This has been turned into a political issue and not an educational issue. If the kids come back 5 days a week, we're in green right now, so let's think about this logically and scientifically. We bring the kids back in green 5 days a week, following the CDC and PDE and Pennsylvania Department of Health guidelines, wearing masks. We follow the rules. Everyone is expected to comply, minus those who are medically exempt 504 IEP. We go to yellow, then maybe we scale back to a hybrid or modeled approach. These are the questions we're trying to ask. Why weren't these submitted to the board for approval, for consideration?
we didn't feel that was a safe plan that we could implement. So we didn't recommend coming back to pre-COVID capacity. That's all I can tell you. We considered all those things. We had focus groups, we had surveys. We're not recommending that because we don't think it would be safe to our students and teachers.
Up until 2 weeks ago, it was fine for K to 5. You recommended it to this board, and that was your recommendation. Something has changed between now and then.
Yes, sir.
And I believe that it's the comfort level of the teachers. I was part of one of the focus groups, so I requested to be part of one of the focus groups as a parent from day one. I was invited to the last one 2 days before you guys made your final determination. What I heard in my focus group was, I think there was 3 parents that were represented, and it was a bunch of teachers concerned with how mask enforcement is going to be enforced, what's going to happen if kids don't wear it, and they were concerned about having an in-service day or a professional development day on Friday instead of going 2 days 1 week, 3 days the next.
But we also had parents on that committee that I chaired that one said they weren't sure what they were doing yet. Another said they didn't want their children to wear masks, just get the kids back in school. So it's
what was the parent to teacher ratio for these focus groups, and were the free and reduced lunch demographic,
Yes,
were
sir,
they
they were.
represented in that?
Yes, they were.
Mr. President?
Mr. President, this is Amy Beth Hodges. Do you mind if I'm able to have a few words?
Sure, go ahead, Amy Beth.
All right, so we have here a responsibility to educate students. We have the CDC that recommends that children go back to school. And we clearly have an administration and teachers who are afraid to return to full-time face-to-face instruction. And they're just not comfortable. And I believe that these plans are unacceptable that we've put forth. We need to be discussing having children coming back to school full-time. The K through 6 children need to go full-time. Whatever we need to do in order to get those children back into school is what we need to do. I believe that this plan is only benefiting the elite and people who can afford to do so, and for that reason, it's just unacceptable. We do not have a community that can incorporate having people going to work and being able to provide for their children only going to school 2 days a week. And I will not be voting for it. Having teachers uncomfortable and administration uncomfortable, I understand and I respect, but we have to get these children back to school, and we have a fundamental right to educate them, and we need to be following the CDC recommendation, and that's for the kids to go back to school. These children have emotional needs. We have had children back into the sports. That has gone successfully. And then we certainly need to address what has been changed within this new plan. Again, it's unacceptable to me, and I will not be voting on it. And I just needed to make sure that I took enough time. I wanted to really hear everybody out And we've had some dramatics. We've talked about anarchy and this and that. But again, it's about the children getting educated. So I really wanted to make sure that people knew where I stood and wanted to express myself as far as not voting for this.
Mr. President, I have a question for Dr. Lay.
Amy Beth, was that it? Did you have any other question at this time?
No, I did not.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Karen.
Dr. Lay, I know you're not responsible for coordinating childcare for the district, but you do have contacts with social organizations. You do meet with different ones. Where are the kids this summer? Where are they? The parents went back to work. Where are the kids? Do you have any idea? Have you heard where they are?
Well, we still have a majority of our students that we're aware of that are still at home, but there are the child care centers that are operating, certainly with limitations because of the guidelines. So families are utilizing those resources, babysitters, neighbors.
Oh, so they're being creative. Awesome.
Correct. A collaborative effort. And we really want to support that and work with families to do that as well. And that's why we're saying, be cooperative and saying, can we have our students go this day because of this? So, we have a plan with transportation. We had to assign kids a bus so that we knew we had no more than 2 kids on a seat on a bus. But then as families are opting to potentially transport their own children, and we know we can keep a balance, we can consider all those things. But until we know who they are and what they're doing, we really can't. I don't expect to get full support of the proposed plan that we're presenting tonight, but I feel like until we just know what we're doing, we need to know if we're going back to the drawing board.
Because the other part of this is you have to, we are certified by the Department of Education, and there is clear guidance.
Yes.
That you have to follow certain expectations, and to go against that guidance is putting your certificate on the line.
Correct, and that's where the voice came from teachers. What we had proposed before did not honor that, so.
Dr. Lay.
And parents said the same.
Just a quick question, and
Yes.
you might know some of this, you might not. Do we know what HAC is doing for our students that take HAC classes?
I know they're fully remote, so they'll
Fully
honor
remote.
students
And
that
do
way.
we know what the tech program is doing for our students that use the tech program?
The plan is to work around our approved plan. Our technical school?
Adams
They'll
County
be
Technical
bringing them in.
If kids are taking diesel mechanics,
Right.
what's the plan for them to be able to do that class?
They'll still come in to school and do that, and then there would be some remote instruction as well.
I just didn't hear anything about that part of the school. So.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, it's interesting because, they're writing their own safety plan, but they're looking at what each district's approving. So some districts have had their plans approved and other districts have not had their plans approved because we have kids coming from different. So then we have to figure out how we honor all of those plans.
And that was my concern too,
Right.
is Gettysburg as a whole is a thing, not that people don't travel outside of it, but now you're taking kids from other schools.
Absolutely.
And bringing
Right.
it in.
And
so I didn't know
teachers
if there
coming
was
from
different
others.
safety guideline for that as well
Right.
or not.
Yeah, I live in Cumberland County and others will live outside the county. So, yeah, it's other people will be coming into the buildings outside of the Gettysburg. Good points.
And Dr. Lay, I'd like to just leave you with one more point. You said that you would gladly work with parents and families that have transportation issues or have issues with childcare.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to remind you that over 50% of our student population is free and reduced lunch.
Yes, sir.
And Dr. Perrin can attest to the fact that we were giving out close to 2,000 meals per week.
Yes.
And I've had people specifically today tell me that if they have a kindergartner or a first grader, they can only be in school 2 days a week. They're going to be in daycare the other 3, and they're not going to be getting the education that we are entitled to provide them.
Thank you.
And I have a question too, and I know we've talked about 2 different, excuse me, models here. We've talked about what we're presenting, and people have mentioned the idea of doing schools 5 days a week, bam, everybody wears a mask, was the conversation a couple seconds ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to make one group do something the other one's not per se, but is it possible that we talked about K through 5 or 6, whatever it was, them coming to school 5 days a week with all mask, and the rest of them stay with the remote hybrid that we were doing? So those younger elementary students that really need the in-person instruction get that. And the parents don't have to worry about childcare, because if you're 7th and 8th grade through high school, you can pretty much stay home by yourself at that point. Is that a feasible option, or is it something that can be changed? I'm just asking.
Can I, Mr. President?
One second. Dr. Perrin's going to answer that question. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr.
Tim, if Ken paraphrased it right, if you're asking, would the 13th plan still work? The educational model could be what the 13th was. We would have to change, I would assume, the health and safety plan. And assume that the feedback would be different from those groups. I mean,
I was just thinking about the elementary schools being 5 days masked to help with people trying to figure out what they're doing with the kid and not have to quit their jobs and do whatever because they can't take care of themselves. Where the older kids could do that.
Is it possible to put on paper, yes, what would the feedback be from all the various groups? I can't.
Well, we know what the feedback's going to be 50-50. You're not going to make everybody happy. I'm just thinking, what is the best scenario? Because, K through 5 need daily instruction. That 2 days for them on and off stuff is not going to work. They need daily instruction. They're not. Now you're going to ask a kindergartner to learn how to use the computer and learn whatever you're teaching them at the same time. This isn't a high schooler who knows computer better than I do and ask them to do their work. And then you're asking, possibly, and I'm not meant to offend, but if it's like me when my child come home and they have calculus homework, I can't help them because I've never had calculus. But some people aren't very knowledgeable on a computer themselves, and then trying to teach a 5-year-old how to work it.
Not everything would be on computer. It's a mixture of on and off. I just want to say, this plan is what we're proposing to start the school year with. And as we said, we're going to continue to reevaluate it and formally review it at the end of the first marking period. But that's not saying we wait till then. It's a gradual model of bringing kids in and seeing how safely we can do that. So that's what we're proposing. That's not to say it won't shift to, if we're successful with that, bringing more kids in and bringing some kids back from full remote. We're just proposing this as a plan that best met the needs of the survey respondents, the committees. Not everyone on the committee wanted it this way. This is just the plan that we came up with based on a lot of feedback and a lot of the information and trying to follow the 6 feet apart so that kids could be at their desk working and not have to wear a mask all day. So I'm not saying it's permanent all year. We're just asking that this is the plan we start with, and then we would consider options like you're saying and all the options that have been proposed based on how things are after we get started. Okay.
Kathleen, I believe you had a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to say I'm a little bit perplexed because the preliminary plan that we saw on July 13th included K through 6 going to school 5 days a week. And I believe masks were included in that plan. And there was considerable pushback from several members of this board against any masks, right? So the plan has changed. Now we've got K through 6 potentially going to the physical classroom 2 days a week to alleviate the need for masks because they can social distance. So I'm perplexed that now some of those same board members are saying do whatever it takes to get the kids K through 6 in school 5 days a week. And I'm going to go back to this. We've got these experts who have worked for months on a plan to get our kids back to school. I suggest we listen to them. We listen to them. Ask them our questions. We may not like the answers, but please let's not continue to ask the same questions here tonight. And let's find a way to get our kids back to school. And I would encourage anyone here tonight who's got questions, please ask them, because some of the things that I'm hearing from my colleagues tonight, if we had asked those on July 13th, I think we'd be in a different place here tonight. I will say, Mr. President, when the time comes to discuss this multi-page plan, I have a lot of questions that are specific to this, and I look forward to asking those. Thank you.
Mr. President, I would like to ask a question, and I kind of feel like Dr. McFarland was going to talk about, or perhaps Mrs. Baum, about our digital natives. I kind of felt like you were there, but I'm not 100% sure. That and, oh, now it escapes me. There was another piece to that. But I felt like that's what you were going to do.
Good evening. Yes, Dr. Lay was on a roll speaking to you guys, so I didn't want to interrupt. So talking about students coming back five days a week, and everybody here has said this 100 times. We want to get our kids back, and we want to get school back to what it was, because that's the most valuable. But I want to go back kind of what was mentioned earlier, too. At what cost? At what cost are we doing this? At what cost are we reopening schools? Mr. Lush said very clearly, we believe in this plan. This is a plan we believe in. It's not the best plan, because our best plan is to get the kids back. In our opinion, that's not safe right now. We need to do it in this manner. It's the best way to get our kids back in the classrooms, and it's the safest and most equitable way to do it.
Maybe also along with those lines, you could address, do kids learn from recorded lessons? I mean, I have no background in electricity, but I can wire an electric fence because of what I see on YouTube.
Yeah, so I just want to follow up with Dr. McFarland that, you know, everything that he stated, agreed. I want to go along with that is a lot of our input from pediatricians, from different resources, says that we could be completely remote in a couple months. And we have to prepare our kids for that as well. So that was part of, you know, trying to prepare in class time. You know, the flip side, everyone wanting to go 100% remote, those who are on that side of the camp, we have kids that aren't ready to be 100% remote at this point. So we want that opportunity to get kids in class as well. Again, we all want kids every day. That would be great if we could all do that, but we can't meet all of our guidelines that way. But we also have a different level of preparation now than we did in the spring, which was indeed emergency remote learning. We are trying to focus on prepared remote learning this time. And hopefully that slide showed you how it was different, right? Like in the spring, kids had Zoom sessions, but it was mainly for check-ins, well-being, Q&A. There was no direct instruction for the most part. Now some teachers, you know, did stories and things like that, but the direct instruction was to stay asynchronous. That was in an emergency situation. Now we're trying to be in a planned situation, and I'll tell you, we've spent hours with the different groups and trying to plan. If we delay this anymore, I honestly don't know how we can prepare for all the situations in the short amount of time we have. And I think we really have to consider the staff and teachers as well, the administration, to make sure that we can prepare the best we can. We don't want to put less than, you know, the best that we can. We know it's not a perfect situation, but we need time to prepare, and every time we go to prepare, there are changes, and we have to recalibrate every single time. So if we put this off more days, more weeks, we have to recalibrate and recalibrate. And that is fearful to me, that we're not going to have our best options because we're still dealing with ifs, ands, and buts of what doesn't make everybody happy. This is not a 100% situation. We're never going to make everybody happy. We have to do what's best to meet the guidelines. And if you remember, our saying was safety and sustainability, which is why we chose green and yellow together. That way we don't have to go back and forth, flip between one situation one week and the next week, oh, we go yellow. And there's no time to plan for change of bus schedules for such a situation, let alone the mental health of all the staff and students, flipping between 3 different models. So that's why we've taken the time to do the research, and we've probably done more focus groups and surveys than any other district in the area. You know, we look at some of the plans that are posted, and they have to list their communication plans, and we've had tons. And we have taken tons of time to read everything and take everyone's input and prepare the best that we can. But we have to prepare for many situations. We're not preparing for just one scenario. That's our reality. And no, we don't like it. It's not the perfect situation. But I think we can be at a much better place in a prepared situation than flip the switch Friday and Monday we have to go to a new situation that we're unprepared for.
Mr. President.
Yes.
So I do have a question, and any one of the administrators are welcome to answer this question. So you gave us a plan on July 13th that you guys did, actually at that point, months of research and felt that you thought was safe and stood behind. And now all of a sudden, within the past couple of weeks, that is not safe anymore. So you explained to me how the entire student body attending school 5 days a week, wearing masks, following all of the recommended guidelines, and documentation from the PDE, the Department of Health, and the CDC is less safe than having 50% of the population in school when they get to the classroom not wearing a mask. Our goal, our job is to get students back in school. I'm not buying what's changed in the past 2 weeks. As a matter of fact, what I have heard is a lot of pressure from the teachers union putting on local districts, and that's what it's about. It's about pressure. It's not about numbers. It's not about data. It's not about common sense. They're not going to be more safe every other day with no mask in a classroom versus the current plan is no mask. Once you get to the classroom and you're 6 feet apart, or there's masks were optional. That's the plan.
The best option is to keep it on, but at least it allows for those that need to take it off at times. You know, that's the way I do it, which is why I said I would advocate at the high school level for kids. If we want to stay in school, if you want to have a chance to do in sports, if you want to have a chance to come in every other day and see your teacher, it's in your best interest and everybody's best interest to keep your mask on. But since we are spaced out, if you need to take it off for your sanity and well-being so you can actually think clearly to learn, like take it off and have your moment, and at least I don't have to react like put your mask on or you're going to see Mr. Lusk right now, because now you're breaking a law.
It's not a law. It's a statutory law.
Okay, well it's the law we need to operate under. It's not a law.
It's not a law.
It serves as such. It's sensible.
I'm not disagreeing with that. And since we're here in a public forum, Mrs. Pratt, you set out several board members were against the masks. Not a single board member at a board meeting has said anything about masks one way or the other. And what one or two people or what anybody does on social media is irrelevant. Name the several board members that have come out publicly against masks.
Mr. Dickerson, I caution you against this antagonism. We're here tonight to come together and find a way to get our kids back to school. The board members who participate in social media groups in which they specifically have voiced being against masks in schools or against masks in general know who they are. So let's not make this something it doesn't need to be this evening. We're adults, let's behave as such.
Oh, let's behave as such. You're the one that brought it up.
So again, Mr. President, when we're ready to get to the plan, I have several questions. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Pratt.
I could, I'd like to share briefly that while it's very important to us to develop a plan, it's just as important to us to develop a transportation to and from schools. We already know by the regulations, so the information is out there and it's available by PDE, by many other organizations, that it's not safe to bring students back. Typically, before COVID, we would be pushing those buses about 72 passengers. And of course, we cannot do that now. In light of all of that information and trying to bring at least 2 people per seat with families, is still stressing the busing system. We have to be very concerned of the populations of our drivers, simply because they're much an older population, and of course they have fears just as well as our staff and student have fears of driving the buses, and it's most important of getting them to and from school simply because getting them safely to school, the distractions cannot occur while the distractions just could not occur, and to make sure that the students obtain safely. One other thing I'd like to add, while it has not been mentioned to date, there is a fear that if no plan is adopted and adhering to the CDC guidelines and to the Department of Education, that we, Gettysburg Area School District and many other districts who go against plans and recommendations could potentially use subsidy as well as any other funding that would come from grant funding if in fact we would defer and chose to operate as normal, is all I would like to share.
Mr. President, question? Or, I'm sorry,
No.
someone else? Yep.
Ms. Pratt, I believe you had a question or two on the plan.
Oh, I'm so excited. Are we there yet?
Well, I mean, I think we're here.
Okay, great, thank you. I do have some questions, and I emailed these to Dr. Perrin and CC'd the board president. So to begin with, thank you for the plan. All of you who worked so hard, thank you. I will say I found in places it was more general than my liking. I would like it to be more specific. So I'd like to go through some of those questions. But first, I do have a general question. Were any and again, I'm looking at this particular plan. It is 25 pages long. Were there any reservations noted by the teachers union or by staff on this plan?
None. I don't believe in the current draft that you're holding right now. I don't think so.
No? All right, thank you. All right, so again, I would have liked more specificity in the plan, so just to kind of set my mind at ease. On page 6, the plan calls for this: disinfect classrooms 2 times a day or as feasible. I feel like we need to have a minimum standard that we can assure each other of, and then if we want to, we can add a target standard above and beyond that. So when I think about a minimum standard that we can assure each other of, are we saying that classrooms will be disinfected 2 times a day? At a minimum. At a minimum.
2 times a day.
I would encourage that kind of language to be built back into the plan, because when it reads 2 times a day or as feasible, it could be interpreted that, oh, if 2 times a day is not feasible, it will be 1 time a day or not at all. So thank you for clarifying that. Also on page 6, clean and disinfect playground equipment, ... frequently and routinely over the course of each day. So what is the minimum standard for playground equipment?
The plan is we will disinfect the playground equipment after each group uses it.
Okay.
It's going to be small groups at the elementary level.
Wayne, would you mind moving up to the microphone so we could all hear? Thank you.
So the plan is for playground equipment that we will disinfect the equipment after each group uses it.
All right, thank you. On page 7, consider providing access to hand washing, sanitizing stations on the playground. So are we going to provide hand washing or sanitizing stations?
We have hand sanitizing stations that will be at the door where the students go in and out to the playground. So there would be certainly an option for the playground monitor, para, principal, director of facilities, whoever's out there helping that day, because we're all going to have to help, to move that station outside as the kids go out. But there will be one dedicated for the playground, but we're going to station it right inside the door.
All right, thank you. And along those lines on page 9, where we discuss hygiene practice for students and staff, we're saying there will be frequent hand washing and use of sanitizer. So, is there a plan to have hand sanitizing stations set up around the buildings, and if so, where?
So right now I have enough supply to put a hand washing station, or hand sanitizing station in every classroom, and multiple ones in the common areas, offices, guidance office, lobby, things of that sort.
All right, that is terrific. On page 10, it's noted there's a staff memo for complete protocol on non-essential visitors and volunteers. Dr. Perrin, could you email that to us for review?
I'm sorry, could you say it again?
On page 10, it notes there's a staff memo for complete protocol on non-essential visitors and volunteers. So if you could just email us that protocol, I'd appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. There are about 4 committees that put that document together, so one of the committees did that portion. So
Okay.
we'll get to you.
Thank you, appreciate that. All right, just a few more. Page 10, this is sporting events, recess, PE. In the green phase, quote, students will be spread out during physical activities. But I noticed that is not stated in the yellow phase, and I wonder if that was an oversight or if there was a reason for that. Again, page 10 states in the green phase of sporting events, recess, and PE, students will be spread out during any and all activities. Should that also be included in the yellow phase?
Yeah, most of those are written for both phases.
I thought so, so I wondered if that was an oversight. All right, also on page 10, PE equipment will be disinfected to limit cross-contamination. Is there a schedule for this? Is there a minimum requirement of when PE equipment will be disinfected?
Yes, similar to the recess equipment that Mr. Crosby spoke of, we're looking at doing it to prevent cross-contamination after each class.
Thank you. All right, on page 10, classroom furniture will be disinfected to limit cross-contamination. Again, is there a minimum requirement for this, a schedule for that?
Again, after each use, if it's a shared usage for flexible seating, and it would be disinfected to prevent cross-contamination after each use.
All right, thank you. Let's see. All right, page 15. It states that returning isolated and quarantined staff, students, or visitors to the school will follow Pennsylvania Department of Health guidance along with your primary care physician. So here's what I want to understand. If someone has had to stay away from the building because of COVID and the person's ready to return, is it on your honor system as to whether that person is allowed back in the building?
If they've been out because the Department of Health has notified us that somebody's out for COVID, there are certain criteria that they have to meet before coming back. I think one of them is the primary care physician releasing them to do so.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I'm not going to ask that question. And then this current plan, the one that we're looking at on page 17, there's the requirement description is use of face coverings by older students. I want to confirm that older students are grades 7 through 12.
I can answer that.
Thanks.
We saw that too, Ms. Pratt, with the older students. We treated that question as all students. We didn't treat it as younger, older. I don't know if that was a misprint from PDE, but we treated it as all students, not just a certain age group.
We don't have children under 2, so we would be requiring it. For all K through 12?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. So again, if the plan is going to be revised, I would encourage you to make that clear. Let's see. All right, and I noticed throughout the plan, there are times when we're saying to the greatest degree feasible. And I'd like clarification on what that means, beyond being very legal.
Same language we used when the board approved the athletic plan on July 13th. Just provides the ability to be responsive to orders that haven't come down the pike yet. Just gives us some flexibility because although it's easy to measure feet and distance and all those kind of things on a daily basis, our folks are really most important because of their judgment, and it gives us the ability to allow them to use their judgment.
Okay. Page 18, this is my last question. You'll all be happy to know that, at least for now. Page 18, the strategic deployment of staff. The district will be prepared to provide an alternative plan to provide coverage when needed. Is this in relation to substitutes?
Yes, that's the way we took it. It was in relation to substitutes, and we're working through that right now with our substitute contractor as to what we can do to enhance the number of subs that we have on our list. My team, our focus group, also said we're going to really stress the importance of sanitizing, hand hygiene, to try to keep the need for substitutes down, because we're always in a substitute shortage, but we're trying to work through some ways that we can secure subs on a daily basis and have them guaranteed.
All right, thank you. And that is it for now. Thank you.
One question while you were talking about that one issue, Kathleen. Is there a protocol or something you guys for parents that would have to come pick up their child for they're sick, doctor's appointment, dentist? Is there a protocol for that parent coming into school?
Yes, I think that's the one that Kathleen had asked about at the front end of the comments about visitors.
But I mean, what will be the protocol? I mean, are they going to come are they allowed in the building? Are they going to get? That's what I was wondering.
What section is that for?
That's a good question.
That wasn't in that question wasn't in a particular section.
Okay.
Right now, our protocol is you come in, you get screened. That's what I'm assuming we'll probably do. The parent would come in, get screened, get a temperature check. That's what we're going to do for visitors.
Okay.
Sick child, it's going to be 2 separate areas for possible COVID, and just a normal, well child area. So they're not going to be integrated into the same area.
Okay.
Mr. President, just real quickly, I'm guaranteed, this is my final question. Dr. Perrin, I know you and other members of the administrative team have a really good relationship with the other county officials and so on. Just out of curiosity for the board here and for our community, how similar is the plan that we're recommending to the rest of, let's say, Adams County schools, which I know you all discuss and plan an awful lot together. I'm guessing it's very similar, but I don't want to assume that.
Yeah, we've been in communication since obviously March regarding most of the stuff that we do, and certainly as we moved through the early part of July, things were pretty similar. And then as folks started making changes, some things started to shift a little bit. So I think that in terms of the current plan that we have recommended right now, I believe that Bermudian Springs is doing a hybrid start, and Fairfield's doing a hybrid start. And then Conewago's still in the process of creating theirs, and then the other 2 are starting back with a certain number of grade levels every day up until believe elementary, and then I think Willistown goes further, goes further. And each district has its own specific, like enrollment, how buildings are configured, different variables to contend with. But to say that we talk often is accurate. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll jump in here real quickly because I just haven't heard the answer to this question, and it's been asked in different forms almost all evening. Can somebody tell me what changed between the July 13th plan, why that is no longer acceptable as a compromise if this board needs to have a compromise? And I'm sitting here reading the tea leaves, and obviously I've had conversations as board president, and I understand there is somewhat of a divide to a degree, and I believe everybody's willing to compromise. And that question needs to be answered, because right now it's all or nothing. What I'm hearing is, I guess, or what I'm not hearing is that plan's still okay on the table. Is it? I don't know.
Mr. President, having a few more years' experience than most people sitting at these tables in education, and I guess I just gave away my age, but I realize how important it is to compromise, and I think if we can do a good job communicating with the community why we, if we do, pass this plan, we need to make sure that parents understand it, kids understand it, expectations are there for every member of our community, and that it is a start to get kids back in school. Thank you.
And Sylvan, I would agree, but what I don't want to do is leave here or end this conversation with all or nothing, because I don't think that's a successful way of doing this. So,
So I think-
I'm going back to the option phases, and if that plan that was presented on July 13th, K through 6, is no longer acceptable, I'm okay with that, but I need to hear why it's no longer acceptable. Was it the teachers, or who said, nope, we're done with this? Because nothing's changed in our current environment here.
I've heard repeatedly tonight that the distance between students is not feasible, that they could not get to 6 feet with a full classroom with 28 kids in.
And no mask during instruction.
Okay, but we can't just add masks to that for those elementary kids and it'd be fine? That way those kids are getting in-person instruction the entire time?
And I think we also need to understand that there will always be some kids that don't have masks on. They could certainly be, carriers of the disease, whether it's a student that has a disability that requires them, that prohibits them from wearing a mask comfortably and safely. I mean, we've had parents reach out and said, it's just not going to work for my child, who might have a legitimate reason. So there will be students without masks, and I don't think that's pervasive, but it will be.
I understand it, but you're going to have kids that's going to take their mask off in a hallway. It's going to be everywhere, through every school.
Sure.
That's not the point. The point is you can have the elementary kids in that school every day with a mask on. It's the same plan, you just added a mask. If we could have done it without the mask, we should be able to do it with the mask.
A schedule, B schedule, there's going to be kids without masks. Our job is to mitigate risk and manage risk, not all out prevent everything.
Mr. Sigmund and Mr. Lynn, there's 3 things that have to happen in conjunction to have a better plan. And the 3 things are the sanitizing, hand washing, the wearing the mask, and the social space, the distance between. And there will be errors in kids sanitizing their hands. There may be time when a kid doesn't have their mask on. And there may be times when kids can be less than 6 feet apart. But when you put all 3 together, it is the way to keep the population the safest. And that is what I keep hearing from our administrators who've spent so much time looking at a plan and going back and reconfiguring classrooms, moving desks, and measuring between them to make sure that they have all 3 variables covered as much as possible.
Carrie, I completely understand, and I apologize, because I'm going to go back to my original question and before somebody jumps on top here. On July 13th, you presented a plan, K through 6. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with even the plan today. I understand 2 different plans. I need to know what changed on July 13th. I keep hearing 3 to 6. Well, 3 to 6 was a problem when we developed that plan July 13th. 3 to 6 didn't come out of nowhere on July 13th. We knew that going in. So what was the significant change? Was it the teachers in our negotiation with them that said, we're not coming in unless you give us 6 feet? What was it?
It was feedback from lots of different places.
Survey responses after that plan. We had focus groups after that plan. And that information from those settings and that feedback is what we're using to make the difference.
And thank you, Dr. Lay, and I appreciate that. And actually, looking back, you did in some forms indicate that. I'm just trying to find a happy medium as we sit here this evening, because it's clear to me that there's a portion that are okay and ready to go, and there's a portion that's not. The last question I would have is the board makes a decision, and it's a 9-week decision. Can somebody tell me what's going to change in 9 weeks? I know COVID could go up, but at what point do we have to have 0 cases before we're going to say we're going to reopen our schools? Because if I sat here and agreed to a partial hybrid reopening, and we find the same statistics sitting here 9 weeks from now, you'll never sell me on a continued hybrid, because at some point we need to move forward. There's risk no matter whether we go hybrid or we go full. We could have our first COVID case on hybrid within 48 hours of opening up our school, and it may not even have come from the school.
Sure.
It came from the grocery store. It came from mom or brother going out, coming back from college. We don't know. So I guess that's the other thing I'd like to hear. Actually, I don't, because there's no way you can answer that question. We could be shut down in 48
I think
hours.
the one thing that definitely could change the number of kids that are coming back into the school is how successfully they learn. And I think if we see a teacher or if we see a student who's in danger in that way, there will be a strong conversation on an individual basis. From day 1 of school to the end of the quarter, there's a student that is not successful, there will be a conversation about what's going to make that student successful, which might be from 2 to 3 to 4 days in the building. So that's one thing that could potentially drive change, because
I say, Mr. Lusk, if you see that there's kids who are not engaging when they're not sitting in school, there'll be some steps that happen even during those. You're not going to wait till the end of 9 weeks.
absolutely.
That would be devastating to their learning.
Absolutely. And I think, with the planned model, the intent is to be instructionally sound, period, at every grade level. And there's confidence that can be done. And with the model that's presented, you also have a group of teachers that are saying, we do not want to lose any kid, even though GAVA is an extension of the Gettysburg Area School District, is facilitated by teachers that work for the Virtual Learning Network. It is financially beneficial for us to have that as an option, so we're not paying 3 times as much for a student that wishes to go to some other cyber charter school. But we have a group of teachers who are saying, we don't want any of those kids, or almost all of them, going in that direction. We can do this, but at the same time, that's a big ask. That's a lot of time and a lot of effort for teachers to say, we can teach fully remotely to the kids that need it right now. We can also at the same time cater to an A-B hybrid schedule. And it, again, depends on the numbers of students that pick whatever plan they're going to pick, on how we are going to react and staff it. And we've talked through a lot of different options depending on where those numbers fall. But we have teachers that want to teach as many kids as they possibly can from this community.
And Mr. Lusk, outside of the
And save thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, hopefully.
Right, that's another important consideration. And it really doesn't pertain on your side of the fence. And I'm just speaking out loud. At some point, there's going to have to be a compromise as to how we're moving forward. We're not going to sit here and everyone get the reopening plan they want down to the letter. And I'm trying to search for what the issue is with the July 13th plan that is absolutely unacceptable right now.
Mr. President, it would be great if we had a unanimous vote. You don't feel like we're going to have one. I don't know that we will either.
What's
but,
that?
It would be great to have a unanimous vote. You don't seem to think that we're going to have one. We may not.
Oh.
But I would like to honor all of the time and energy the administrative staff, the focus groups, the people who have responded to surveys for the plan they have brought to the table and that Dr. Perrin has brought to the table. I'd like to call the question.
Well, you're assuming, Ms. Soliday, that I don't respect or honor by that comment the hard work and dedication. And I think what you're not seeing right now is that having the unique ability of signing or writing 300 emails, reading the newspaper articles, speaking with the board members, speaking with the administrators over 2 months, I'm trying to find a compromise. And it compromises the option of July 13th because that alleviates the board members' serious concern about families choosing whether or not they can put food on the table or they can go to work or stay home with their kindergartner. Then it is what it is. And I'm sorry I keep pounding that point, and don't read into me that that's the plan that I want, because I'm undecided.
No,
but I needed to hear I needed to hear answers on why. If that's totally off the table, tell me it's totally off the table, because then what you've done is you've forced this board to say yes or no to one set plan without any compromise. And that's a recipe for failure.
I'm sorry. I'm not disregarding the time that you've spent reading emails or the board spent reading emails or talking to other people. Yes, there's part of that. But there is a shortage of time also to do something well. And what the board does is listen to the recommendation and either vote yes or no on it. There can be some changes to it, but out of respect to everyone's time, including families who have to make some decisions based on the plan, I'd like to call the question.
Well, I think also out of respect to the school board itself, we found out about this plan Friday, and most of us found about it on Facebook before we got it.
Yeah.
Now we've come here on a Monday and got the fill-in of exactly how this plan is going to spiel, and now you want me to make a decision. I need time to process what everybody said, to think about it. I can't do it in 3 hours we've been here to make this decision when I'm getting bits and pieces of information I haven't had yet.
And there was a deciding factor between the July 13th plan, which was sufficient, and to where we're setting right now. And it's about the 3 to 6 feet spacing and the masks. The science says that masks work. I like numbers and research. There is over 1,000 children in Adams County that attend daycares because their parents work. How many daycares have we all read in the newspaper or on Facebook? How many daycares in Adams County have closed due to a COVID outbreak where a child has given it to one of the daycare workers? The answer is 0. I think that we can manage and mitigate risk and still honor and respect the families, the teachers, the people that put hard work into this plan and try and come up with a solution. Maybe it's not K through 12 that goes back 5 days a week, but we seriously need to evaluate the K through 5 and what we can do, following the science and the data, which is clearly there, that masks do work. And if the issue is 3 to 6 feet spacing, well, we can take care of that.
Mr. President, the question was called, according to Robert's Rules of Order, what comes next?
If I might.
I'm sorry, I apologize, I did not hear. Who called?
Twice I did.
Yeah.
Okay, and I apologize, I did not hear it. If you could have addressed me.
A motion to end debate is not debatable itself, and it requires a 2/3 vote. So if 6 people vote to end the debate, then the motion would succeed.
Bob, did you say we need a second on that, or we just vote on the
That was my question. Does that need a
request?
second?
Is there a point of order?
I'm not sure whether it
I don't think that
requires
needs
a second.
It does. I don't think it does. I think it requires a 2/3 vote.
Yeah, What I'm reading here, I think it does not require a
Then
second.
it's a roll call
and
vote
It
then.
requires a two-thirds vote.
It's a roll call vote. Kathleen?
So if I vote yes, I'm voting to end the discussion?
That is correct.
Yes.
Timon?
To end the debate. Yes or no? End the discussion.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Carrie?
Yes.
Sylvan?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Amy Beth?
Yes.
I vote yes also.
Mr. President.
You're recognized.
So what comes next in this proceeding? Would we up for a vote?
We don't have a motion on the floor at this point.
I would like to motion to table the vote.
And I'd like to second that motion.
Question?
For what purpose?
The motion is to table, I guess, an assumed resolution or motion. It's to table this topic to a later time, and the topic being whether or not you're going to adopt the health and safety plan that's been presented here tonight. It's not debatable, and you're shaking your head.
No, I'm
Okay.
agreeing with you. It's not debatable.
It's a majority vote.
Well, can I ask a point of clarification? So is the motion to table the vote on this plan, but then to vote on this same plan at a later date?
That's not to be determined yet, Ms. Pratt. What now is on the floor?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, what is on the floor right now is a motion to table this. I've asked for a question. If nobody has a question, I'll give you, from a board president's perspective, on how this will proceed further, and you can vote the way you choose. Are there any questions on the motion?
Not a question, but a comment. I think Tim made a really good point that we had a lot of general information with the plan tonight. Tonight we heard a lot of specifics from our leadership team. And I like what Tim said about having just a little bit of time to digest that. We recognize the leadership team can't wait forever. And if we table this, it can only be a very short period of time so that they can move forward and work out all the logistics. And there's a lot of logistics to work out, and we appreciate that. So I support what Tim said, that maybe we just get a little bit of time to digest all of the new information that we got tonight on the specifics, and we come back and reconvene and finish this meeting with a vote.
Is there any additional questions? For the board's knowledge, if the vote is positive, I will be, as president, I will be recessing the meeting or asking for a motion at the end, and we will reconvene this Wednesday at 7 o'clock at the same location for the purposes of this one sole agenda item. Roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Sylvan?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Amy Beth?
Yes.
Timon?
Yes.
Carrie?
No.
Kathleen?
No.
Al?
Yes.
I vote yes.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I motion for recess.
Excuse me?
I motion for recess.
I will actually, can you wait, and I'll entertain that at the end of our last agenda item.
Oh, yes, sorry.
It's just the calendar.
No, well, you wanted to, didn't want to wait on the calendar.
The next item up is 6.2, the school calendar. Based upon the potential of adjustment of the school calendar because of a 2-day recess on this particular agenda item, I would entertain a motion to also table that.
So moved.
Second.
That's been seconded by Timon. Question? Amy Beth?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Sylvan?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Timon?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Mr. President, if you give me 30 seconds.
Yeah, please.
I just, the next meeting, August 17, I'll be bringing to the board an agreement that I'm going to ask you to approve, but I just wanted to give you a preview. We have a house project. Our students build a house. We have an agreement with Adams Electric. Adams Electric owns the land we're building on. They're providing the materials. And all this agreement would do is transfer this agreement over to the new technical institute, ACTI, and ACTI will pick up that program. So but I know the board doesn't like to see an agreement for the first time and act on it, so I'm just letting you know that's coming.
Thank you, Mr. McQueen. Moving forward, informational items. Information items. Board committee reports.
Policy committee has been suspended during the summer months and will resume when school starts.
Building and program reports.
We've been working on one thing and one thing only.
And obviously the calendar of board events. And that will include the meeting this Wednesday, the continuation from the recess of this evening. I'd entertain a motion to recess this meeting and reconvene on Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Second.
Question? Roll call. Kathleen?
Yes.
Timon?
Yep.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sylvan?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Amy Beth?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you all.